Disney, learn from K-Pop Demon Hunters? And really, what can we all learn? Because it's not just Disney. Like, I feel like this movie came out of nowhere, took over social media, and I hadn't heard anything about it. And I consider myself someone who, like, has a pulse on the animation niche, right?
Who
on
has
YouTube.
A pulse?
Yeah, who
I'm
also
not
have
dead.
a pulse, I hope, but a pulse on the animation niche. And so it's just funny how this movie came out of nowhere and it's dominating. Like, people are making jokes like, oh, the fictional idols are topping the charts right now and the real idols are nowhere to be seen, right? And so this is going to be a review of the movie, a discussion. We do have some criticism because we don't think that it's perfect, but we want to discuss things like, is the movie overrated? Is it a good musical? What could they have changed to make it stronger, but still give our praise where praise is due? Because I do think it's a big accomplishment to have something go this viral and be stuck in, you know, Netflix jail. That's really where Sony put it. Instead of releasing it in the theaters,
Yeah.
it's kind of in Netflix jail where, like, the lesser movies go, you know? Like, that's kind of how it's treated as opposed to getting a theatrical release, right?
I think the reason for that comes out of COVID, because I think Sony Pictures inked a deal that a certain number of their movies come out on Netflix just when nothing was coming out in theaters.
Right.
The first one that did that was Michaels versus the Machines, which is also a brilliant film. I think it would have done a very good job in theaters, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, it could have even been, like, I know that both would kind of cannibalize, but it could have done a limited run in theaters and then have gone to Netflix, or just like, oh, certain theaters, because some people will go to the theater even if they have a Netflix account just for the joy of watching it with other people or with their friends and on the big screen, right? And so I think it was a really big, but we'll talk about that because this movie was in production hell for a while. But I want to get over first how our music experiences are, because I'm sure that a lot of fans of the movie are fans of K-pop, but I wanted to talk about us, and I'll go first to lead Hunter through it. So I didn't grow up listening to Taylor Swift or like Justin Bieber or anything like that, or One Direction. I never really understood the idea of like, oh, you go to a concert with a bunch of screaming people and they're all yelling the lyrics over the singer who is also singing, and you're going to see this one individual person as opposed to seeing like a musical and a show. And I know that that sounds so autistic because it is. That's probably exactly what it is. However, as an adult, I've really gotten into idol groups, mostly virtual idol groups, so like Hololive, but I do listen to some K-pop, some J-pop. I really like anime about the idol industry, so like Oshinoko is a good example. Also the Takurazaka Revue, which is, again, a musical, but that sort of idea of, oh, the group dynamic and performing together and that sort of thing. That is something that really speaks to me as a performer, and so I think that that's why I gravitate more towards, oh, you're the girl groups, and there's kind of almost like a story there. There's the underdog story of how you got together and beat the odds and, I don't know, whatever,
versus
right?
watching Justin Bieber and being curious about why there isn't a plot.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I don't know, Justin Bieber. Where is the I Want
well,
song?
I guess, you know, One Direction had their little underdog thing with American Idol, but if you weren't there, you wouldn't know. Yeah, sorry, X Factor.
Because I'm clearly the One Direction
But if you weren't
the
there
duo.
on the ground floor, you wouldn't have all that backstory, right? So yeah, that's me. I know, I'm one of those, oh, my music taste is better than yours. But it's not even about that. It's just literally as a child.
It's
like,
your
you
preference.
can't judge me
Yeah.
for what I liked as a kid. You know what I mean? That's just how I was born. I don't know what to tell you. But go ahead, Hunter. So I know more about idols than I think you do, you would say.
That is true. I wore...
But you know more about music,
I wore
I
a
think.
t-shirt for a punk band called the Stroy Boys. They're out of California. They're amazing. They're wonderful. I've been following them since their first album. And I wore that to communicate to you that my musical taste generally skews away from pop music in general.
Right.
Only in the past couple of years, maybe since Billie Eilish came out.
Right.
Like 2019. So the past 5 years-ish, have I slowly been giving pop music a bit more of a chance.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you're younger, you often define yourself in opposition to things you don't like.
Right,
And I listened to a lot of rock music and a lot of alternative as a kid, and so I sort of defined myself in opposition to pop music.
Right.
And growing up, I think, was me accepting that, no, actually, a lot of pop music is quite good. That or pop music just did get more interesting. Like, I think Chappell Roan and Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo and Sabrina Carpenter are more interesting than a lot of the shit we grew up with, like Katy Perry and... You know,
like the
Justin
analogy
Bieber
that I used was that, like, if you ask me, I will tell you I don't like chicken. But, like, if you really grill me about it, no pun intended, you will discover that it's like, I don't like specifically how my mom used to cook chicken before she got the air fryer, which was most of my life, right? And so we say these blanket statements like, oh, we don't like pop music, but in reality, there is probably like 1 or 2 pop songs that we all like, right? And so upon further investigation, it's like, we just never found anything that we liked before, but I think that most people have a song that they like that is in a different genre than what they usually like. So they don't actually hate all of the music. They just haven't found the thing that speaks to them in that genre
and
yet,
I think pop music has gotten more interesting relative from the 2000s to now. I will say, though, that I do have not like a strong understanding of K-pop or a strong interest in K-pop. I've tried to listen to the music. It's just not for me.
Can I say something that may may offend you? I'll cut it out. It's a little too happy for you, isn't it? Like a little bubble gum. Like I can't imagine Hunter being like we're ready to take on the world, and like you hear all like you know, the floaty, really happy, you know, maximalism that especially a lot of J-pop has, like the sort of bubble gum. I'm like, you're a little too happy for Hunter's personality.
But not only that, it's like the music is it kind of reminds me a lot of that early 2000s sort of dance pop kind of music, really bubblegum stuff. Like, Sabrina Carpenter has a bit of edge to her, you know? To her music, if you really get in there. Chappell Roan obviously does. Olivia Rodrigo, I would argue, is almost more like pop rock. I think she has more DNA with, like, Paramore than she does with, you know, Taylor Swift. So I just don't really like the type of pop they make. Similarly, I think the pop music, that people like K-pop for the complete package. You have to like the boys and how they dress and how like they act in like little interviews and their music videos and their dances and their merchandise. It's a complete package.
It's very much like VTubers, right? Like in that similar way. You're not only listening for the songs, you're listening also for the group dynamic.
Like when I listen to K-pop, it's like I'm listening 100% for the music, when realistically the music is a small, like maybe at most 40%. You know what they do with K-pop stars in Korea? They have like an Olympics. Where they all do like...
I'll trust you.
They all... Yes, I looked it up.
I've seen in Oshinoko, obviously this is J-pop, so it's a bit different. Like, the idols will go on game shows and stuff, and they like play games together with like late night hosts and that sort of thing,
So they do that sort of stuff too, which you see that sort of game show stuff in the movie that we're about to talk to, K-pop Demon Hunters. But they were originally going to do the like sports meetup scene, but they cut it from the movie because American and Western audiences were just not very familiar with it. But I looked it up.
I had no idea.
Like they're doing like they're like running races and like shooting bows and arrows. It's
like the Disney Channel games.
Yeah, the Disney Channel games.
So I know that. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, Hunter, but like that was in my heart. I don't like Mr. Beast, okay? Don't tell him, I guess, because I want to be on the show. But I don't want to be on the show for the money. I just want to play hide and seek. And I think that goes back to some, you know, the childhood, like the dodgeball, the manhunt, like stuff that you would used to play at recess, right? It just speaks to me. And so, like, the Disney Channel games was my ideal... I don't even know how to explain it. This is the fucking shit, right? So I think that
I don't even want to be on a TV show. I just want to, like, play dodgeball with Zac Efron.
Kinda, yeah. So I think that, like, that's another thing. That's a very important thing to think about in relation to me and my sort of neurotic, like, if you're not, like, a character, like, it's hard for me to, like you in a sense, right? Because you're seeing, they have the sports anime
I feel like you would like K-pop.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that is probably why, if we were to go back in my childhood and psychoanalyze, it's like they do that sort of stuff that the Disney Channel stars would have done, whereas we're not seeing Chappell Roan, at least not yet, like playing hide and seek or anything like that, right?
I feel like Chappell Roan's the type of person that would like walk when they made you run in gym.
Yeah.
Anyways, I love you, Chaperone. With that said, though, I don't really love K-pop, and I don't really get K-pop, but I also don't really get Scientology either. But I'm pretty interested in Scientology, and the same thing's kind of true with K-pop. It's like, I'm not into this, but, like, the world of it is so fascinating to me, and how, like, the K-pop industry works and how their fans work. It's very fascinating to me. So I almost have... In the same way that, like, a virologist probably doesn't like, COVID or tuberculosis.
Right,
but they do, like, they do find it interesting. I find K-pop interesting. Not to suggest that K-pop is like tuberculosis, but just trying to communicate.
Yeah, I think that they understand. So, okay, well, that does not help me segue into anything. So I guess we'll just keep going. That now you guys understand where we're coming from.
Yes, this is our attitudes towards K-pop.
Yeah, but I do want to say that we are going to have criticism in this video, but it is not going to be like the shitting on the thing relentlessly like you may have seen us do with Moana 2, because here's my distinction, right? Disney is resting on their laurels. That's why at the beginning of this video, I wanted to say, what can Disney learn from this? They have all this money, but they're making this middling, low-effort slop, and the people working on the songs, like the Moana girls, I will give a little bit of a pass in terms of them compared to Julia Michaels, but still there's a level of almost arrogance with Julia Michaels being like, oh, this was supposed to show the selflessness of the hero versus the selfishness of the villain, and treating her song as that deep when it is literally factually not that deep. And then the Bridgerton girls being like, oh, give it a month, your kids will be singing the song so much you'll get sick of it, right? And so it's like, this is middling, and what does not help is that the creative team behind it, like, I know that you have talking points in the interview, right? And no one's gonna admit their mistakes, but you can at least try to be a little bit more humble than give it a month, all the kids will be singing it, and then when the kids don't sing it, how do you end up looking, right? And so this movie to me, despite the problems that it has, it feels like Sony's unloved middle child, where clearly there was a lot of heart put into this, but the problems that exist are not from like laziness or low effort, it's from a lack of time. And I feel like that neatly, most of the time, you can divide criticism for something into those two categories, that there was something because it was literally low effort on purpose, right? Like Julia Michaels' stuff and everything that she had going on, like bad lyrics, just slop on purpose, and then this thing suffered from a lack of time, but not the lack of heart. And so that's what I appreciate in this case, even though we are gonna get into the criticism and stuff. There was no problem that could not be fixed with more time. And that's how I can tell that it's not really like a creative problem, it's like a company problem. Because this had 9 iterations, or I guess they pitched 9 other projects before Sony was like, I guess we'll let you do this. And they were all vastly different, but like, it just makes you wonder what would have happened if they hadn't restricted the creative team to the amount that they did, and like, we just needed like an extra half an hour, I think, for most of the stuff that we're gonna discuss. So yeah, I don't want to do too much preemptive, like, don't throw tomatoes at us, but I think it is important because of the videos that I've done in the past that there's definitely there's a line, right? There's definitely a very clear line. But yeah, do you have any other, because you were researching apparently, did you hear about the 9 previous iterations?
So what I found, so the creator of this film had wanted to do a film about sort of Korean culture and Korean mythology, and the actual K-pop element was a relatively like late in production addition to it, which struck me as like a little bit, I when you listen to some of the interviews, and I looked into some of the interviews, I think they really genuinely care about K-pop. Yeah. This was not, my original fear was like, K-pop's big with the kids. It's like profitable and marketable. Do that. And they really wanted to do something else. I get the impression that really wasn't the case. That it was, although maybe a late-term addition, they really did, like, happily meld the two. Yeah. Because the K-pop, like, the Huntress, the main characters of K-pop Demon Hunters, were based off of Korean shamans who did perform songs and ceremonies, musical ceremonies, to ward off demons. So there is, like, that is kind of,
and you see that kind of in the opening, right? Yeah. Like the original group, if you want to call it that, or in the more traditional dress.
So, like, that feels, so the jump off from that to K-pop, like, it doesn't seem like a really big jump to me. It seems like music was always going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So what I originally was worried was like, what's the most marketable things Korea has that we can like push out to a Western audience? And they chose K-pop. I don't get that impression. I do think they came by it honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. But it's just 9 other things that were picked. And I'll put like the short here if I can find it, and like you guys can see what the 9 other things were. But there were demons in other like iterations, but some of them were just vastly different. Hunter said that this was corny when I told it to her after we watched the movie, so I tried to rephrase myself. But you know, there's, for me, unless it's in bad faith or rage baiting or anything like that, regular criticism has always kind of comforted me, because I think that we fear that being a creative, like in order to have something to resonate with people, it absolutely needs to be perfect, right? And most of the stuff that we do, like, you know, amateurs do, right, is not going to be perfect the first time, or
some
probably
might argue,
even the 100th time.
Terribly good.
Yeah, you know, and so I think that, like, you know, it's better something imperfect that leaves a positive impact than being Moana 2 and everything is just forgettable and no one cares. And so even though, like, fandoms especially can get really defensive over criticism, I hope that people would kind of see it that way. Don't you kind of want things to be a little imperfect sometimes so you know that it is also okay, right? Because you like the thing and it resonated with you, but it still has problems. I think that that's kind of a good thing.
I love how you're not that familiar with K-pop stans, and yet you're doing a very important thing, which is placating them so they don't cut your head off.
Well, you know, I need to cover my dots and my T's and all of it, right? Like,
cover my dots and my T's.
But I think it's important because of, again, the videos that I've made in the past. There's a big difference between, like, the Moana 2s of the world and then, like, something like this or something like Epic, at least to me. So I don't get offended when people say that, oh, this thing that you like has a problem, usually, again, unless it's
mostly
in bad faith
I'm
or something.
aware of them.
Yeah, like, we're aware of them, and it kind of, I don't know, it just kind of makes me happy to know that, like, something can exist imperfectly, but, like, get all of this love and really, you know, speak to people in some way and get as big as it did. So everything out of the way, hopefully we're gonna cut that down a little bit. But now we'll actually talk about the movie. Sorry, we also did this with Moana, but I felt like all of that was important to talk about. So, do you want to do visuals first? I mean, this is an animated movie,
that's true.
right?
It's an animated film, and it's animated, I don't know if we've mentioned this, by Sony Animation Pictures.
Yes.
Or Sony Pictures Animation. And Sony Pictures Animation is really interesting because they started in like the mid-2000s, and for basically 10 years they were basically like the C tier. If DreamWorks and Disney were up here, they were like the B team.
Sure.
They were not well appreciated.
Do you know what
3D
else
animation.
they've done?
So they did stuff like Surf's Up.
Okay,
And,
I don't know.
They did the Emoji Movie.
Oh, okay.
So like not necessarily like great films much of the time. And then they did Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, roughly 2015, 2016. And since then, there was this remarkable turnaround from them.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people kind of view them as doing better on average than Disney.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have that film, you have the Sky Dragon, which is apparently really quite good. You have Michaels versus the Machines, which people really love. I think they did the Lego movies.
Yeah,
I
think so. That sounds right.
Which was the previous, I should say, the ones
Fact check, Hunter.
previous to the Spider-Man that was also quite good. But they had they started off kind of as like a B tier DreamWorks, but slowly worked themselves out as to a real competitor.
Yeah.
They were always where Disney basically they wanted everything to ostensibly look like Tangled.
Yeah.
And they've been copying Tangled's homework for
everything.
At this point, like what, 15 years
Yeah.
now? With you watch Spider-Verse and then you watch this film and then you watch Michaels versus the Machine and you watch the Lego movies, they're very different.
Yeah.
And
I think you can tell for some things that they do share like a common ancestor, if that makes sense. Like they share some DNA, I think, visually, but they do all have very distinct art styles,
it's a lot
I
more
would
distinct
say.
and a lot more interesting. And in this film, I really did quite like it. A lot of the characters have very like expressive faces. Like sometimes they go almost exaggerated. That's not like my favorite thing in the world, but it was very striking and very interesting. Apparently they tried to match a lot of the and I have not watched a lot of K-pop like music videos, but they try to match a lot of the aesthetics of K-pop music videos.
Yeah.
And to my untrained eye, that seems like the case.
Like when
Also,
Jinu and Rumi
yes.
meet each other, that is a classic. I don't know music video per se, but that's a classic K-drama.
Yeah,
like everything is so slow.
Oh,
the bottles fly in
yes,
the air.
and a lot of
right?
the romantic scenes, a lot of those scenes are shot with this kind of bloom that a lot of like K-dramas are shot with.
Yeah.
I have not seen very many K-dramas.
Oh, I have,
We
so
watched,
I know.
yeah, so you probably are, but even I like have only watched like I think Extraordinary Attorney Woo.
Right, which
for
isn't
what
a
I
romance.
presume is, well, kind of.
I mean,
in the
it's
end,
mostly like
a legal
drama, right?
And anyways, but like, yeah, I kind of recognize those bloom moments. I quite liked it. I think it was very well animated.
I think it's so interesting how
Lot
they
of eye
did the
candy.
2D chibi sort of stuff too, because that's something that I'm sorry to bring up Ruby, okay? I'm not saying that this is in any way comparable to Ruby, leave me alone. I'm saying that, like, that's something that Ruby tried to do, trying to mix the 2D sort of anime inspiration with 3D, and like, that's very difficult. So I've been looking at these shots and I'm like, how the fuck did they do it? I don't know, right? Like the popcorn eyes and like stuff like
the
that,
kind of
right?
magical realism, heavily cartoony
Yeah.
things. Like
I really enjoyed
that's
that.
really unique to that movie relative to other Sony Pictures Animation films. And even Disney films, like you don't see a lot of that anymore.
Yeah.
Like that tends to be what you get in more like television quality cartoon stuff where you see birds flying over people's heads.
Exactly. And I
So
think
it's a
that
lot of
stuff's
fun to bring those out. I really quite
And like
them.
it was colorful, it wasn't
Yes.
drab. Obviously, the Lilo and Stitch and like all that stuff, like that's live action, but like it's been, even Wish wasn't that colorful. Like the desaturation has not only hit live action, desaturation has been hitting animation too. So just visually, like everything looked stunning. I can only imagine what it would have looked like if they had, again, put it in the goddamn movie theater, but it's okay. I would also like to add that, like, I know that this isn't visuals, it's kind of like a mix of a couple things, but I really like how they kept continuity with like background characters and like also background gags and stuff.
Oh, you see the same characters again and again. And
yeah, and well, that, but also like, okay, so this is a random example, but I'm doing a video about like every secret in Beauty and the Beast, right? And I didn't notice that like there's a scene where two of Gaston's like goons, he puts his finger in the cake, the wedding cake that Gaston has for Belle, he licks it, and the baker just gives him this like, what the fuck is wrong with you, right? And so like, I never saw that before, but Disney doesn't really do that anymore, like with their 3D background characters, right?
What I used to
like,
hear...
you know, Beauty and the Beast had so many, like these guys are passed out drunk. I never saw that before. This guy clearly doesn't know how to play his instrument. Just all of these little, right? Because in 2D animation, everything's hand-drawn, so you need to pay attention to those things. And like 3D Disney has really like lost that. Like the crowds kind of just exist to fill space, right? So you don't have a Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep moment where like Phil's like, oh my god, everyone's come to see you, and the stands are fucking empty, right? But like this movie, you can tell it was clearly inspired, even though it's 3D, by anime and by, you know, like older movies that would have had those things, because it kept those things in mind, right?
Or at the very least, they tended to lean into those.
Yeah.
You're right. Like the what I've always heard is that there's the Simpsons versus Disney response to like background characters and reaction. In the Simpsons, the person who's talking is gesticulating, and everyone listening is just standing still. So you're meant to like project your feelings onto them. Whereas Disney, everyone's very animated in their reaction. And I've always preferred that version. But you really can't call it the Disney anymore.
Yeah, because they don't know it. I've never seen it, right?
You call it the K-pop Demon Hunters.
Oh man, but yeah, like stuff like the old power walking ladies, like again,
Yes,
I don't like, you know, I only watch K-dramas, so like this would be like
We're
making
both
assumptions about
white
Americans,
Canadians.
like by watching American TV shows, but like that's
don't
something I
know.
see in K-pop, or sorry, that's something I see in K-dramas all the time, like the old women power walking and gossiping together, just stuff like that. I was like, oh my god, right? And like even if you're not Korean, like
You're
you
famous.
probably have, you know, your Italian
familiar with the-
grandmothers
yeah.
have a sort of similar thing about them, right? And so,
like,
you know,
they're very familiar cultural references.
Yeah.
Which was quite nice. I did like, it felt very, I don't know, obviously not Korean. I'm not into, like,
authentic to the Korea booze.
But a lot of the creative team behind the scenes were Korean, which you love to see that. I really do hope that like the people for whom this is more familiar with, they get a lot out of that.
Yeah, but even like I was like, it's that person like from before, like just and like again the background jokes, like it was just so like it was so endearing how you could tell that a lot of work was put into stuff that people probably wouldn't notice. Like there's a scene where Jinu is sitting in the chair in the sleeping bag in front of the meet and greet like signing, and he's the only one in the chair and the other ones are on the floor.
My favorite,
and I thought that was such a nice little like that was so cute. Like
my favorite kind of animation is the kinds where I mean, I guess it's on either side of a spectrum where it's one particular thing being really beautifully and very like thoughtfully and intentionally animated, and then where it's just there's so much stuff going on you could not watch it once and catch everything.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
K-Pop Demon Hunters is definitely the latter, and it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's the type of film you really can watch more than once.
I mean, you saw me when I was, because I watched it with Arnold, and then we
Yes.
watched it again together, and I was like, oh my god, like, Hunter, did you see that? Like, I was typing notes like crazy when we were rewatching it again. I
have a
noticed
lot
so
of people
much
who
stuff.
want to see it with me again. I'm like, oh, like, but then they found out I watched it, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll find someone else. I was like, oh, no, I'll
let's
see
do
it
it
with you again.
Yeah, and I'm
Quite good.
the person that doesn't really like to watch movies multiple times, like, not in close succession to each other
Yes.
anyway, but I'm like, yeah, Mom, let's watch it again, like, a third time, why not? Let's go. But yeah.
Play it again, Sam.
I think that now, that would be a good segue, too, into the, I guess we're gonna combine characters and plot together, because you can't really have a plot without having you know what I mean? So, in terms of the overall plot, in terms of, like, stopping the bad guy, I think that, like, it made a lot of sense with how they introduced everything at the beginning and where we ended up at the end. I think that the issues that we're gonna have comes from the utilization of certain characters over others, and just, this may not, I have some nitpicks that may not bother people, but like, we'll see who it bothers. I love all the girls. I want to see more of them. And so as we're kind of going through talking about their moments and stuff, it's not like I didn't like any of them. It's almost like I didn't get enough of them, which is always better, I think, than having too much of them and their presence being redundant. You always want people to want more, right?
I'll let you go first, just because I feel like my feelings about the plot and the characters are like too intertwined to like cut them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I feel like we got it. We have to do it
Yeah.
together. I really like the dynamic of the group. I think that something difficult, though, when you're getting into a group dynamic is that, at least, I don't know if, again, like, the East has other tropes in terms of a group, but, like, in American TV shows and stuff, the way that they tell you to create a trio is that one must have, like, high likability, low competence, low initiative, right? The other one must be an asshole, but they have high competence, like maybe low initiative, and then one has the initiative, but maybe no competence, and they're probably also likable. So think your Avatar, think your Totally Spies, right?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, kind of,
Ninja Turtles, anything that has a group dynamic in it, you're gonna find those. Brandon Sanderson talks about this a lot, and I think it's interesting because I never realized it before, but then when he said it, it made so much sense for literally everything that I've ever seen. So I think that the issue that I have with this is that I like all the girls. I didn't find any of them unlikable. However, I know that, like, one of them's the choreographer, one of them's the songwriter, and then Rumi is, like, the idol royalty. Like, she's sort of the face of it all. But I think that the problem that I had in relation to the plot was that I know that the girls need each other emotionally, but it didn't seem like the plot needed all three of them. I guess towards the ending, because, well, no, towards the ending, I feel like that kind of proves my point, because Zoey and Mira are like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? All our songs are three-part harmonies, but we can still do this. So there's the implication that technically they could have done it just the two of them. That maybe is one of the things that going through the movie twice I sort of noticed, is that, like, it's really Rumi's story and the other two girls are there. I would have liked it to be a bit more dire for the other two. maybe Rumi, because her voice was lost for a period of time, maybe Mira or Zoey takes over a lot of the singing, and, like, you see how the fans react to that. Like, I know that they were basically, like, silent for, like, 2 weeks or something, right? Because they were trying to let Rumi's voice rest, but I would have liked to see them try to do something like that, because I really, again, I like them all together, but they felt kind of hive-mindy sometimes, a little bit, and they didn't have that, where we need you desperately, or we're going to die. And, okay, so this is also a random thought that might be a nitpick, but I would really have liked to know how I know Celine built the group around Rumi, right?
Yes.
But, like, did she do some sort of ceremony where suddenly they could see the Hanmoon? Like, was there some sort of, like, blessing? Can everyone see this, but then people aren't looking? Like, I would have liked to know, because they're taking the magic from their fans, and they're using that magic to
they're
fight.
Secret?
Right, but, like, they weren't born into it, so, like, do you have to do some sort of ritual on them so they have the magic? Does everyone have a level of magic potential that is taken into consideration?
They kind of let a lot of stuff hang in.
Yeah, and you wonder, like, most people are probably okay with that, but that's the one thing that I was like, okay, well, why can they see it and Bobby can't? Is it like everyone could see it, but you have to look, which, like, some magic systems work like that and other things? Or is it just like, oh, Celine did a blessing and then suddenly, because imagine you're just a normal girl living a normal life, and then you get into this idol group and you're told, oh, by the way, there are demons and you have to do combat, right? Like, how do you know that these girls are gonna be combat proficient? You don't. So I would have liked at least, like, a crumb more information to, like, but the other two girls weren't born into it, so how did they know that they had fighting capability, or did Celine need to train them to fight, right? Like,
there's a lot going on there. Like,
sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot. So Rumi is a demon.
Yes,
or part demon on her dad's side.
Yes.
And they just kind of never explained how that happened.
Well, so if there were cut storyboards where Rumi seems to be getting memories of her father, and
but
the mom and the father,
that into the movie proper.
Right. They seem to have had a loving relationship, forbidden love story.
So your mom boinked a demon,
you know.
But you never actually cared to put that in the movie. So watching it, I'm like, okay, well, you half demon.
Well,
that's weird.
I think that's probably one of the things for
really,
time that they didn't want. Sorry, not that they didn't want to, but that they were like, okay, what can go at this moment?
But I feel like that's kind of significant to her backstory. And it would have been like, what, a minute and a half? Like,
yeah, it would have been nice to at least have it visually, maybe. But also, how would she know she was a baby? So
I don't know, like she had
Celine
tell her that, and I think Celine's kind of.
Oh yeah, we need to talk about Celine needs her own section of the.
So a trend I've seen a lot in films recently, and it was in Turning Red, it was in Elementals, it was in Encanto, which is like having sort of like the kind of immigrant family storyline of like having a being the child of an immigrant, having a great deal of pressure put on you to perform, and like making films thematically about that intergenerational tension and trauma.
Yes.
They kind of tee it up for that, but they really don't do that. And here's the thing, I'm white.
You said that so questionably.
Again, like, my grandfather immigrated to Canada, but, like, I am not the child of immigrants.
Sure.
Right? So, like, I never really experienced that personally. And so, like, but that's, everyone has intergenerational, like, issues, and that's a really interesting way to express that. So I'm always,
interested.
I'm always interested in that.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be like, hey, why aren't you, like mining your familial trauma and your sort of racial trauma for my enjoyment. I understand what that looks like. So if they don't want it, they want to have that just be really, really subtextual and a lot more subtle than even Encanto or Turning Red was, where that was more of a foreground. That's fine, because at the end of the day, that's not all you are. You're not only your familial traumas and your familial tensions. You're a lot of things.
But in this case, the trauma seemed kind of, because there's a kind of a coded element of racism-ish, right? Like, oh, you're half demon, let's just hide it, or like, you know what I mean?
Like, that's definitely, my also thing was like, Celine.
It's already there, kind of, right?
Celine is like the character of like, you need to be this way, you have this bad part of you, it needs out. It's so, like, it's so heavy, and she's there, and they just never really address it or go into it. Like, Celine, I feel like, barely has lines.
Yeah,
She explains to her that she's partially a demon at the beginning of the movie. She rejects her at the end, and she's just kind of, like, in the background a little. She's barely, like, in the film. So I feel like she's just kind of like, I would be okay if that was just really, really subtle in the background. But because you have this character that's just not being utilized, it kind of begs to be utilized more, because I feel like she's going to be the older character that does the generational issues business.
Right, exactly. And she's the one who tells the girls, like, your fears and your faults must never be seen. So you're right, Hunter. Like, it wasn't
it's like,
there.
It's like
I know what you're trying to say, right?
It's like they took out their easel and they put their canvas on, and they got their paints, and they mixed their paints, and they got their model up, and then they went home. It's like, you didn't paint the picture, you didn't do the thing.
Yeah.
Which I felt was like something of a missed opportunity.
So, okay, I think we should talk about Celine now then, because I was trying to talk about Zoey and Mira first, but we've pivoted hard into, okay, it's fine. For Celine and Rumi, I like the metaphor with Celine's like cover those up and trying to deflect. We see that in the flashback. We see her kind of ignore the questions with Rumi about where she comes from, and like, oh, if we're meant to kill all demons, like, what about me? Like, everything with patterns, right? I really like that Rumi is allowed to be so frustrated throughout the movie too, because that's something that Disney female characters are not really allowed to be anymore, right? Like, you know, Moana doesn't even get like, why me? Like, why do I have to go again in Moana too? She's just like, okay, right? And so my problem with Celine is like a couple things, okay? I wish that Celine was a bit more of a presence because the girls repeat her faults and fears must never be seen. And that, like, makes you think that Celine would micromanage them to hell. You know what I mean? But she's not there. And so the pressure's really, again, if we're talking about how this issue's intertwined with Zoey and Mira, it's less tangible with the other two girls, because it's like, well, Celine's not here, so let's do whatever the fuck we want, right? And so I get the pressure. I get that she's put pressure on them in the past, so there's residual pressure, but we don't actually see that, right? And so Zoey and Mira are like, Celine says it, but she's not here right now, right? Whereas I feel like if Celine's really like this, if she's as aggressive as we saw her at the end of the movie, it baffles me, like, does she need to protect the tree? Like, is that what she's... That's how I would have excused it. Like, Celine can't be here because she needs to protect the tree, but she has let us go. But the fact that she's so, like, cover those up, your faults and fears can never be seen, but then she doesn't micromanage them, kind of feels like, I don't know, like, it's not even that it's not realistic, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense if we talk about a pyramid of super objectives. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I trace Celine's actions back to what I think her super objective is as a character, the pyramids I've talked about in a live stream before, it does not trickle down that she would just stay at the tree and not micromanage them. And I don't want them to replace Bobby, because with Bobby, I really like that he wasn't like the poorly treated, disgruntled manager who turns evil at the end, because that's like kind of a trope in other stuff, you know, like, oh, you didn't appreciate me, now I'm evil, right? But I think that, like, Bobby and Celine being present, so Bobby was like the good cop and Celine was the bad cop, would have really made a lot of sense. And maybe Celine and Rumi wanted to push up Golden, so Rumi seems like less of an asshole, because I remember when we were watching it, Hunter was like, that's such a dick move, and I was like, yeah, that's what I thought, they got all their food, right? Like, how could Rumi do that? And I know why Rumi did as a character. It makes sense for her character pyramid, but the fact that Celine isn't here, it doesn't make sense to me that she would just leave them to their own devices with something this important unless she had something else to do. Like, they had to make it more clear that the reason why she's not here is because she has to climb the tree. She has to protect the tree, or she stays away from Rumi because somehow Rumi's demon energy can, like, mess her up. I don't know. But there had to be a choice, and there wasn't a choice. She was barely around. Her singing voice is the same lady who played Mulan. Like, Mulan and Jasmine's singing voice, and they did not utilize her whatsoever. And so that was the one that I'm like, this is a little bit baffling, the fact that because I think you're right. I think that that's what they wanted to avoid. They didn't want to do the sort of, like, tiger mom, like, putting the pressure on you kind of thing, because that's been done in other stuff before. But it's already there, so now you kind of have to do it, right?
It's like a Chekhov's gun, where it's like, well, it's in the story and you're not using it. That seems odd.
You know, we talk about promise, progress, payoff. Like, I get it, but, like, you put it there, so, like, you gotta do something. And I think that Celine is the biggest casualty, because you could see how her presence would have improved a lot of things, because you could have lessened, I think, the blow for Rumi's character. Because, like I said, I do really like her, but for the initial watch, even Arnold was like, that's a bit of a dick move, bro. And when you have that again, that character Triforce, right? Where one of them needs to be super likable to make sure that you don't alienate the audience, but Rumi's the one with the most attention. Like, we basically could have deflected some of her behavior onto Celine and shown that Celine was a bit more of the pressuring force. Like, oh, she's the one who realizes that the boys are demons, and she rallies up the girls to be like, let's write a song to take them down. Like, not to make it so Rumi doesn't have that agency, but just to consider that it's not just the girls acting of their own, right? That they've been raised by someone who has these beliefs and thinks that this is the right thing to do, and there is that pressure, and the pressure's what's tearing them apart, because I think that that's the confusing part, is to have Celine be like, never show them, never go to the bathhouse, and I'm like, you're not here! How would you know? How would you know if Rumi told them or not? Like, I thought that she would be on her ass 24/7. That's the character I see in my mind with her. So I think that was a little bit of a waste. That could have helped with Rumi sneaking out to see Jinu too, because I'm like, anyway, I'm just like, why?
Between Celine's whole character, I feel like with Celine, I mentioned Celine and Rumi's sort of tattoos as a way of saying, I feel like that's evidence of, like, the big shift towards, you know, this having gone through several iterations.
Right.
Like, it's
and
almost
getting, like, the 30 minutes cut or whatever it was rumored to have been, right?
There's you can see the big hole where clearly, like, editing was done and a lot of stuff was chopped. And I do think that, although I genuinely very liked the film, the plot and the characters are weaker, because you can clearly see where, like, there was issues with the script. Like, there's a big black hole there. And the big black hole, for me at least, is Rumi's tattoos and that whole background stuff, and Celine's, like, basically her whole character.
I don't know how Rumi in those storyboards saw the flashbacks of her and her father when she was a literal, like, child, like, when she was a baby, so I'm assuming that would have had to be something that Celine told her reluctantly eventually, oh, you know, you're just like your mother, like, she was in love with a demon too. Like, Celine could have been lurking in the shadows, seeing the situation, like, with Rumi and,
you know, that sets
Jinu,
it up
right?
for a sequel where it's like, oh, this is Rumi's dad, and, like, he's the big bad here, and this is the actual background, and
I mean, he may not be the big bad. He may be, like, a hostage, too. Because who knows, right? Like, if
they end up doing a sequel, which I feel
because
like
the Demon King didn't seem like he understood why. Like, how does she have patterns? What the fuck? Right? And so I think that, like, if anything, the dad's probably, like, he's in big trouble now for doing whatever he was doing up there. I'm like, I feel like Celine could have made it a bit more clear what was happening with all that. Because it was a forbidden love story, right? And that's important for Jinu and Rumi's later forbidden love story, and Celine's involvement could have been that Celine has realized that Rumi's sneaking out, like, oh my god, you're not gonna make the same mistake that your mother made. Like, she was in love with the demon, and, like, he was in love with her, but it always ends badly. Like, whatever, we could have saw that through flashbacks,
that,
you know?
and, like, Rumi and
Jinu.
Jinu, they're such good, because they're basically, like, the same, they're sort of foils of each other. Both have
Yeah, it was so well done, I
because,
think.
like, yeah, he's probably the most well-rounded character with the best, like, most clear backstory. Like, he has the familial guilt.
Yeah.
They both are dealing with familial guilt and the things they've done and who they are and how they're supposed to get past that. They've just chosen different ways of, doing that.
Yeah.
And that way, like, they really work well with each other. Although that doesn't quite land because whereas with Jinu, it's quite well done, and you sort of see all of it, and you see the sort of intense shame that he feels for what he did to his parents, or his mother and his sister. You don't really get that impression with, oh gosh, I'm forgetting
with Rumi.
With Rumi.
Until the end, really, right?
Until maybe the very end, but even still, because Celine, that never really gets all that much attention. It's I don't know, it's not as strong as I think it could have been.
Yeah.
It's not as strong
like, we
a
can
parallel
obviously
between
tell
the two.
pressure is on her for the whole moon.
Yes.
Right? And, like, the fact that she wants to erase the pattern so she can be normal, like, all of that was well done, but I think the deeper familial ties of, like, well, do you blame your mother for falling in love with a demon? Or, like, you know what I mean? Like,
It's
that
just,
sort of thing.
It's a little
like,
uneven there, and, like, I think it could be improved.
We had the output, but not what inputted. You know what I mean? Like, we almost have all of Rumi's reactions to that information without knowing the source of it, where if it was like, oh, my mother made this mistake, I have to make sure I don't make the same one. That's why the whole moon failed in the past. Right? I'm just making stuff up, but if they had done something like that. So, okay, I feel like that this may be a good time then to pivot into Zoey and Mira.
Yes.
I feel like that may make some sense. Okay, so here's my controversial Zoey and Mira take. I don't understand exactly why they were utilized the way that they were. Even though I like both of their characters, I think that there are some issues with how they were implemented, in the sense of, like, you hear during the scene with the doctor that Zoey has people-pleasing tendencies, that she's always kind of worried about the mood around her. Then with Mira, you had that she apparently is the black sheep of her family. Oh, that reminds me, okay, hold on. That reminds me of something that we need to talk about with the opening, right? But then they focus a lot more on Mira than they do on Zoey, even though Zoey has most cause to be like, hey, like, Rumi, is everything okay?
Yes.
Like, I want to make sure that you're all right, because there's a confrontational scene with Mira and Rumi, and the whole time I was sort of, well, the first watch I was, I was just watching, but with Hunter I was like, this really should have been Zoey. And I think here's the problem, and this will get into the songs. I think that the songs, by the way, I'm leaving it to the end because this is a musical theater channel. I know you guys want to hear what I say about the music, right? So the songs I think are really well done and well incorporated, but we'll get to that later. The problem is, though, is that at the beginning of the movie, you have the fans introducing the girls, which I think is very clever, but where it falls short a little bit is that the Golden song only repeats what the fans know, because you can't have information out there in the world, right, that is too vulnerable for the girls, because this is a song that is being presented to their fans. So I think it should have been like one or the other, because Golden has pretty much the exact same information that Zoey, Zoey's from America, like, she's like this rapper and all of that stuff, right? So with Golden, we got the addition of Zoey feeling like she's torn between the two worlds. Like, she grew up in America, and so you kind of get the subtext that maybe she felt disconnected from Korean culture, maybe in some way, right? And she feels like she's not Korean enough, but she's not American enough, right? So she doesn't fit in, like, she's too much, she's not enough. They talk about that when the demon voices. And I think that was really well done, to hear more about, like, what their personal, like, fears are. However, right, the problem is that we hear that at the opening because that's what the fans know, and then we hear it again in Golden, and the same thing is true for Mira, right? Mira, we hear that she is the black sheep of her family, their faces are pixelated, and her only verse is that, like, oh, I was the problem child, and now I'm getting paid for it, right? So we get even less with Mira than we do with Zoey by comparison, because at least Zoey in the song took it further and went, oh, not only did I grow up in this sort of life, I feel out of place, right? But with Mira, she's just restating the same thing. So they had to choose, in my opinion, I think it would have been better to choose one or the other, and I think it should have been probably Golden, because of the context that Golden is a song that they're releasing to their fans, right? But the fact that they were introduced at the beginning of the movie by the fans means that we don't get to know the stuff that I talked about earlier, like, how do you see the weapons? Where did you learn how to fight? How did you guys all get to know each other? And my other solution was that maybe the lyrics of Golden could have been, factual, but then the visuals could have been like you see little Rumi and little Mira and little Zoey and they all meet each other and then you see them fighting and then you see, like you could have done it at least visually if not in the actual song. So that was like kind of the red flag number one, I think, for introducing their characters, is that a musical number is supposed to give us more information. I know that this isn't a musical, and Golden did give us that, I think, with Rumi. Yeah, but not there's the opening number with everyone in the village kind of musical, you know what I mean? It's a musical, it's not a musical theater movie, right? Yes. So I think that was the first thing that I was like, uh-oh, this is gonna become a problem later because we're repeating the same information. And then, for some bizarre reason, they have Mira going in to confront Rumi and not Zoey, when it seems logical that Zoey would be the one most concerned about the mood and the vibes. I know that Mira is the more confrontational personality, but this becomes weird later when Rumi says, like, not everything's about your insecurities, Mira. That would have been, I think, better directed at Zoey, because Zoey's insecurities are called out in 4K by the doctor, whereas Mira's insecurities, like, we don't know what they are because she's so hostile to the doctor that we never find out. So that was a very strange choice, I think, to have Mira be the one have the brunt of that when Zoey's the one that we got the most information about and that we knew directly what her insecurity was, whereas with Mira it's like she was a problem child. But like, I'm like, what does that mean though? Like, to me, I would have liked to see that manifest in either in this rewrite kind of idea where Celine was more important, that she either worshipped the ground that Celine walked on because she has mommy issues and Celine is now her replacement mommy, or the opposite where she doesn't like when Celine's around because she just sees Celine as like another version of her own mother. Like, that would have helped to do something with Mira's character, but for every beat that has a confrontation with Rumi, Zoey makes the most sense to be the one doing that, not Mira, in my opinion. Do you agree with that, Hunter? Sorry, I know
I would absolutely, I would agree with that, because I do kind of feel like I don't like, and this film did it, where they're just like, I don't like when stories introduce the character, like they tell you what characters should be like, you don't really see them for yourself.
Right, I know
what
you mean.
They're like, this is all the characters, this one's the bubbly one, this one's the bad girl, this one's the leader. And it's like, I understand that like in K-pop there are like caricatures that like, you know, you fall into almost like a commedia dell'arte.
Yeah.
But, and so that's fine, but there is a bit of incongruity there where it's like... Mira is like, yeah, she's supposed to be like more sort of mean and standoffish, but you see her be very kind there, whereas Zoey, it makes more sense that like when Mira's having her issues, that it would be Zoey show up there.
Rumi having her issues. When
Rumi,
it's Rumi having
Zoey,
her issues.
Mira. So the characters just get jumbled around a little bit. I also think that Rumi, she has like lead character in a sitcom issue, where the main character of the sitcom is typically like the every person.
Sure.
And they're not the most like distinct character,
yeah,
right? Of the sitcom. They tend not to be like the most memorable character. They are the sort of planet they're the sun that all the more interesting planets revolve around.
Yeah, which is something else that we talk about with trio dynamics,
yes,
right?
Exactly. So I feel like Rumi's kind of like not as distinct personality. Her main like personality is like anxious about her secret.
Yeah.
Right? But because you don't really dig that deep into that secret and the background and everything with Selena, like it just doesn't quite, it's not as prominent. So she kind of feels like not a block of tofu, but a bit of a block of tofu relative to like the more distinct characters. I know what you're saying,
because characters shouldn't be like too stereotypical of like, I wouldn't want Mira to be the rapper just because she's mean and like hard and like whatever. So I'm glad that they kind of mixed and matched, like, oh, Zoey's the rapper, but she's also very bubbly. Like, that's a little different. Like, that's a different thing.
You could have had both Zoey and Mira go into Rumi and ask about...
Yeah, that's true. You could have also had both of them do it. But I understand what you're saying, though, Hunter, because, again, the reason why the Triforce works for a reason, right?
Yeah.
When you think about Katara, Aang, Toph, and Sokka, which is 4 characters, but don't worry about it, right? Because they add on more later. Aang is very, like, likable and bubbly and childlike, but that's kind of reserved for Zoey, and I get it. I don't know what else I would add to Rumi, because I think that the stereotypical thing to do would have been to give her more like Weiss Schnee-isms and have her sort of, you know, be very detached and cold, but I don't really like that character archetype, so I'm not really sure what I would have done personality-wise. You know what I mean? Because we already have mean, or we already have, like, standoffish, and then we have bubbly, and so I'm like, what's the third type of person?
I think there's really only two,
two types of people.
Her main thing is, like, she's anxious about stuff, but they don't really, I don't know.
Maybe they could have done more nerdy or something.
Maybe
they could have done something like that.
Because that's
like,
the classic mean, bubbly, nerdy.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
you have your Ralph and your
more-
Michelangelo and then your Leonardo.
Or more like
Donatello.
focused on like tradition and very like almost like strict in a sense. Like I don't know how that would manifest exactly, but
I think nerdy is to go for it, right? Like she's the Twilight Sparkle.
Yeah, like maybe she knows everything about the demons,
then you have
right?
Pinkie
like,
Pie and you have Applejack.
like she's looking through her books to figure out like where it all went wrong with the whole moon.
Sure,
like maybe it could have been something like that. I don't know. But this kind of goes into what we were saying earlier.
Where there's a big hole in the middle of the movie, kind of.
Yeah,
where...
well, but also what I was saying earlier about the idea of, oh, well, one of them's the choreographer, one of them's the lead, one of them's the songwriter. In theory, those are all of the things that you need and why you need each other. However, in practice, in terms of the plot, like the initiative, competence, likability thing and whatever, like, I do like Rumi, because I think that her anxiousness will probably be relatable to a lot of people, but on a deeper level, you can't just be relatable, you also have to be compelling. Does that make sense? And so I think that, like, they kind of got off easy because they made her so relatable to probably the teenage girl audience, but, like, if she was anything else, I think it would have fallen apart, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Zoey and Mira were, unfortunately, kind of shafted, I think, and that's the biggest problem I have with them. I really like their personality. I thought they were funny. I liked Zoe's like, okay, I have a bunch of videos for us to watch, but they're actually like 2-second videos of turtles, and I have 700 of them, like my little autistic Plorbo or whatever we say, right? So like they had really funny like pieces of dialogue. Like there was another one that, this wasn't one that they said, but like every snowflake is special, but one snowflake is probably the best, right? Like there was a lot of funny dialogue that I didn't understand until I rewatched it again.
There's a lot of, I will say.
So they were very endearing, but the hive mindness of them, I think, was a problem because there's so little for the other two girls to do.
I think what you should almost do is get rid of Bobby, the Ken Jeong character, and replace him with Celine.
I mean, I said that earlier, or make them good cop, bad cop. But like, Bobby's so refreshing. Like, he's so nice.
Yeah, but like, you have Zoe as kind of the more like comedic relief character, and the world, like, make almost the world funny. Like, it's like the boys thing where like, if you're like, you can get away with like a satire of an extreme thing, and the world of K-pop is like ridiculous and extreme, and how people act are ridiculous and extreme. You can kind of get away with the world being crazy if your characters are mostly normal and reacting to a crazy world.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I feel like you kind of get more of the comedy from the world around them and less from those characters. And
like, we didn't need Zoey and Mira to have the witty one-liners of like,
you,
no more
and
abs
Zoe
and whatever.
Yeah, and Bobby. That's the other thing that I kind of struggled with. I really thought within the first 5 minutes that I was going to hate this movie.
Yeah, so I wonder if I should edit this for it to be earlier, but I was sitting there and I was like, oh god, this is going to be a different kind of video than what I thought it was, because Hunter was like, oh no, you have this look on your face. Because,
I don't know, so like, in the opening, it's almost, and I hate it, and I understand that it's popular with like very young kids, but it's like that maximalist Mr. Beat, like something happen every single second, like runaway train pacing that I can't stand, that there kind of was at the beginning.
Right,
like there was constantly something going on and it's just not working for me. You need a sort of slower pace with things.
Yeah.
Right? It kind of felt like the difference between, this is gonna maybe not make sense to you, but makes sense to people at home. The difference between like Teen Titans original flavor and Teen Titans Go, where the original was like, you had goofy stuff, but you also had more serious stuff and adventure stuff and action stuff. So it was more leveled, where Teen Titans Go was basically just like ADHD children rotting ridiculous bullshit 24, like, and
it wasn't really indicative of what the rest of the movie was like either. Like it was a very there's a stark contrast between the opening and then what the rest of the movie is, even though it does have its funny moments. So it did a bit of a disservice almost, right?
By the time the plot actually hit,
yeah,
like it got a lot better. But that opening's painful. Like I just imagine if this was in theaters and a dad brought their kids to go see it because their kids really like Jungkook and BTS and Twice. Like, those first 10 minutes, they'd be like, oh my god, what have I done?
Yeah, right? I know what you mean. It didn't bother me that much. It's funny because to me, I'm like, this felt like the very long first episode of a TV show. So I kind of, like, I was down for it, but I realized watching Hunter that there was a lot of high energy thrown at you very immediately. And, like, it was just a lot, and kind of contributed to the hive mind thing, because you don't get to really see their distinct personalities when they're all, you know, doing the same thing together. Like they're all eating and they're pre-gaming before the show.
I almost feel like, because there's a lot of stuff that I would think was, because like, there's a lot of stuff I would think would be very interesting that they could add to the K-pop world, but I also understand that it's a little bit grim. Because if you do not know, the K-pop industry is incredibly exploitative.
Yeah,
like, these people are not paid very much. They're, like, worked to their bone. They have terrible record deals. Like, maybe the top echelon are able to kind of get out and be treated better. But it is, like, a really terrible exploitative machine. It's very
difficult, right?
It's like how, like, Harry Potter, a bunch of kids wanted to go to British boarding schools. And then you see people who went to British boarding schools and they, like, have, like, 1,000-mile stare. Like, they went to a war.
I know what you mean.
So, like, I feel like you could lean into, like, how brutal it was. Because in this show, they're just like, yeah, they have a hectic pace, but they really like their hectic pace. Yeah. Isn't it great being a K-pop star and making money for record companies? I think the reason why they didn't want to
do that, though, was because, like, it's a kid's movie. Like, it's kind of like how in Hannah Montana, everything just kind of works out with her having the double identity and the paparazzi
really is like
Hannah Montana
fought, like, monsters.
Yeah, so I kind of get it, but I know what you're saying, because I think that's a valid point, because Celine could have been in there, and she could have been
more brutal. Like, you could build her up as more of a kind of villain. I don't know, it goes back to my main issue with this
Celine
movie,
is the ground zero
there's
problems.
it's a pretty good movie. I really quite liked it. I'll watch it again. I would recommend it to people. But I just kind of, it's like, I really like it, but I'm almost thinking like, God, they really could have done it, like, it's almost
like
more,
Ruby.
like early Ruby, where you're like, you could have probably done this better, and it's kind of disappointing that you didn't do these sort of obvious things to improve it. Or like the ending of Arcane, where it's like, you had it, and you could have landed it.
And it's not that bad.
It's not that
by
bad.
any means, but I know what you're saying.
I don't want to express that I think the movie's bad, or I think I'm like disappointed in it. I just think that it's like so close to being really, really good.
Yeah.
Like great, but instead it's just really good or pretty good, but not amazing or like phenomenal.
And I think that with Celine,
a 10 out of 10.
What they could have done to make sure it was still mostly kid-friendly, but also to reference that kind of brutality, could have been like, Celine is the one where this old kind of mentality is coming from, and the message is supposed to be, well, the industry doesn't need to be this way, we can be the change that we want to see, like some, like
you
cheerful,
can break
wholesome
from like the
message.
Past, all that sort of stuff.
Because I was really glad, for example, that they weren't doing like, oh, the girls aren't allowed to eat because they need to watch their figure. Like, I was very glad they didn't do that, because it's such a prevalent trope, and like, it's a prevalent trope because it's reality, like because it's true, but like as a performer, I know how much you need to eat before a show, because you're dancing and you're singing and you're sweating, right? It all out, and you almost need to like carbo load more, right? I think they made a joke about carbo
they talk
about that, right? So I'm glad that
it's
they
like,
did that instead of
yeah.
going with, again, that would have been a more obvious thing to do, would have been like Celine being like, what are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to eat before the show.
When I said darker,
right.
like, talk about disordered eating, that's like heavy.
Right,
I am in favor of traumatizing children
But
in
not-
children's music. I think children's movies need to be scarier. I need children crying in theaters more. I don't
Right.
think that, like, that's so bad that I almost...
But that's
don't
the
want
first
that
thing
to be
I
the
think
case.
of when I think of like I think the beauty standards, right?
Yes.
So when you're talking about like being more like realistic about the industry, like that's the first thing that came to my mind. I don't know what I would do instead of that other than like the work hours, but we kind of already got that, right? I think that everything goes back to Celine, and I really liked Mira, and I like Zoey, and I like their relationship, and like there wasn't a time where I was like, oh god, it's this trope, right? Because, you know, the reveal of the patterns can feel like that classic, like, you lied to me, no, it wasn't supposed to be this way, but like it felt very natural how they did it, right?
I really hate that. Like, I think it's like lying while I was sleeping is the name of the trope or something like that. I hate that. Kids movies do that all the time. It's so annoying. It stops, it like just slows down the plot so long.
But I think it made sense here, the way that they did it.
They did it in an interesting way where, like, the, like, big diss track that you were gonna do about the Saja boys, your band members are actually doing to you. I really like that twist.
And, like, having the demons do it instead of them two doing it. Like,
But,
I know
like-
that they would probably never do that, but, like, I'm glad it was a fake breakup on stage versus a real breakup on stage, and then the real one happened behind the scenes, because it would have been, again, easy to do it like, oh, Rumi gets revealed during the song and the girls freak out, right? Like, you know, something like that. So
where
I like
instead
how
it was
they
like
subverted
fake, but
it.
really, like, they, like, actually did want to go out and save them. They were just being torn up. But when they got together, there was that brief breakup.
Yeah.
At least it was very brief. It wasn't as long and drawn out. In a lot of kids' movies, that's the whole third act.
Yeah.
It's just, you were lying. That's painful. It's not the whole third act.
Yeah.
But,
and you
not my
understand why
favorite.
the lie matters so much in this context, because they live together, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like this person
But that's how you
like,
do the,
you're
like,
the
power
only...
of friendship. Is
right,
that, like, no,
right.
it didn't matter. But then, like, you were able to beat it by just playing on her internal shame.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, could have been a little bit better.
But I
Still
think that
pretty good.
it ended up making sense to me in the sense of like, okay, it's not really about that she's a demon. It's the fact that like you're living with someone and you're best friends and you're practically family. Like Mira, it's her only family and you don't know this person, which again, I wish they leaned into that a bit more. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything for Zoey and Mira. I don't think that there was anything else that I had about them.
That's all
like,
the
again,
characters.
I really like that. No, we haven't talked about the boys yet.
the boys
I
yet,
really
yeah.
liked them. I like that they were allowed to be ugly sometimes.
And,
Quote
yeah, they're
unquote
just
ugly with their
weird and-
expressions, and that they were allowed
Yeah.
to be weird, because that's something that, again, Disney especially seems to be afraid to do with their female characters, and it really bothers me that every girl needs to be a perfect role model, right? And so I like Rumi being frustrated and Zoey and Mira, but I think that like they have enough personality for people to grab onto them and like make fan content of them and want to see them again in another context, right? Like in, well, hopefully something in the future, right? Let's talk about the boys now.
Well, really,
It's just Jinu, right? Because like,
Jinu.
I don't care that the other ones weren't really fleshed out. They don't need to be. They're like fodder.
Yeah, they're just background.
I do think that like people were saying that it's kind of a commentary on how easier male idols get it compared to
I don't doubt.
female
I don't
idols,
doubt.
because like mystery, romance, a baby, Abby, or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? I can't remember all of their names right now, but you have basically the romantic-looking one, the hot one,
That one with
the
abs,
infantilized
yeah.
one.
Weirdly,
that
that is, like, the
And I think
young
that
one
that's,
is a thing.
Like, that was
funnily enough.
pretty good. I really like their introduction. I like how they didn't have Rumi instantly fall in love with him, because they did that K-pop meeting, but they subverted it well with, like, him not helping her up. Because I feel like it would have been again, it's one of those things where it's like the obvious quote-unquote thing to do would have been to have him be like, oh, like, let me help you, I'm such a perfect gentleman, and for Rumi to instantly fall in love with him. I'm glad they didn't do it, because it was so much more interesting to have them be like real enemies and have Rumi not be dazzled by him immediately, and for them to be like, fuck that guy!
I also love his pets. Like, the tiger was an amazing, adorable little creature.
And I'm glad
So
they didn't
goofy.
talk, okay?
Yes.
I'm glad that they were just existing as animals, because that is something scary
the tiger,
for every parent to see, is an animal mascot and be instantly afraid.
But also, it just behaves like a cat, like it just knocks over the plant, and it just it's very cute. Do you know what their names are?
No.
Their names are Derpy and Sussy.
Oh, so you remember their names and you don't remember the names?
Well, because their names are not mentioned in the movie.
Yeah, they aren't.
But in looking and doing my reading before this,
it is interesting because I was so sure that one of the boys was actually the tiger, and like that was the real form, but that's not what happened. I think that would have been interesting if at least two of them were kind of Jinyu's henchmen and were on his side. But you know, either way, like that's not a big nitpick. But that would have been interesting,
They don't really explain what their deal is. They're just kind of like a demon pet, but they're not behaving like demons.
Yeah, like I think that
they're just like a spirit.
So if we wanted to merge that, we could have had two people that were sent by the Demon King, and then two people that were on Jinyu's side, and that could have been the bird guy and the tiger creature, and then they could have turned human. But I'm okay with how it shook out.
I think how they did it is preferable, where it's just background characters that are like, you know, jokes about K-pop, because I feel like, you know, a K-pop fan will look at those characters and be like, oh, that's funny. It's like a K-pop group because they're all the stereotypes. And then the cat is just like a fun, cute cat. Yeah. And a bird with like 6 eyes. That's a lot of fun. I really dig those.
Yeah, I like it too. That's just like a secondary kind of thought, right?
That's a reference to Korean mythology, I believe, which does feel like maybe like they kept it around from an earlier version of the script.
Yeah, and I do like all of those things that they incorporated, especially at the beginning of the movie, you see the traditional outfits and stuff like that. Yes. I'm looking through my notes. Okay, so Jinyu's backstory, I might just be stupid. I was confused about whether Jinyu wished for a better life and the monkey's paw curled and it only gave it to him and he was like, fuck, I messed up my wish, or if he like actually said, fuck my mom, fuck my sister, whatever, I'm getting out of here, and that he wished, like maybe it was like, oh mom, you didn't try hard enough to get us out of poverty and you've just been parentifying me or whatever, I had to busk on the street for you, like you only care about my little whatever, right? Like I'm just making shit up. So I didn't know if it was like he made the wish and the Demon King tricked him, and by the time he realized it, it was too late, or if he had beef with his mom, and so when he went to the palace and they didn't follow, he was like, yeah, sucks to suck, I'm living the good life. That was the one thing that I feel like a confused facial expression when he got to the palace would have sold it, because you do see him smile, like in the reflection when he's eating, like with all of the other guys, and he tells Rumi, like, the truth, my wish only served me, like I abandoned them, because I thought what the abandonment was that Jinyu got his wish to come true and then he died, which meant that the mom and the sister were back on the street because suddenly he wasn't the hot new thing in the palace anymore. I think it matters a lot whether he was tricked by the Demon King or if he was like, fuck you, got mine. So what wish did you make? I needed the exact wording of what happened here, and I know that that's a nitpicky thing, but you understand what I'm saying, Hunter? Because there's a difference between fuck my mom, she never did anything for us, she's just like lazy at home drinking my money away, and then there's like, I made this wish and I didn't realize that it would have only been me, right? And so I feel like that was a little unclear. But I feel like the accidental selfishness almost makes more sense, because you're not hating your little sister that much that you're wishing for her to suffer on the street, you know what I mean? So, but you think that it was that he only made the wish for himself knowing that it was only gonna benefit him?
That was my interpretation of it, is that his shame he felt was because of, like, he betrayed his family.
I feel like you ought to have major beef with your family, though, for you to only wish for
Unless it's like a fuck you got mine thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Which is like, here's the thing, because it went from like, oh, you're kind of sympathetic to, oh, wow, you're a terrible person. I don't know, but then again, like, right, like, you actually did do a terrible thing.
Like, I don't know, it's almost too cartoonishly evil for him to do a fuck you got mine without the mom actually hurting him in some way.
Because, like, people do fuck you got mine. Like, that happens.
But I'm like...
People are sellouts. Like,
you have to have a reason, though, don't you?
Yeah, like, you're no longer starving on the goddamn street.
No, but that's not what I mean. I mean, it would have been so easy for his wish to include the mom and the sister. So I just needed, like, the stipulation was that it was only a wish for him. I just needed, like... some clarity on that, because that really, like, threw me off. I know that the original backstory was a lie, but the truth of the backstory was not clear enough to me, where I was thinking that it was like an accident, and the shame was he accidentally left them out of his wish because he was being thoughtless.
No, it seemed pretty straightforward to me that it was like, oh no, you're a bad person.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, like, but why are you bad? Why are people bad?
Because of their situation. Like, if he was secure and, like, didn't live in poverty, he wouldn't, feel the need to do that.
I guess. But yeah, so that's the one thing I would have liked, like, this wish only applies to you. Do you want it? So then it would have been like, he left his family out on purpose, but it was a choice rather than his particular wording. Right? And so that's the only thing where I was, again, well, maybe this didn't apply to everyone, because Hunter said that she got it, but I guess from my perspective, I'm like, if you have a genie granting wishes for you, you don't just, like, leave out other people unless they really wronged you, right? And so that's where I'm like, I could have used a bit more fuck you got mine clarity. But I really liked Jinu. I liked his personality. I thought it was different that, again, you don't have that Han situation where he was pretending to be nice. Like, he was pretty upfront. I liked the scenes where he, like, covers up Rumi's marks for her during the fight scene because he knows that she's not ready to tell her friends. I like the dynamic of, like, you kind of knew that he was gonna betray her the entire time, but it doesn't feel like, so the Demon King says, oh, you haven't ever done anything that didn't serve you, right? In the last 400 years, that wasn't self-serving to yourself. I really like how, like, it was obvious he was going to kind of betray, but it wasn't because of his selfishness, it was more because of his fear. Like, he wanted the memories to get erased, he wanted the voices to disappear. Do you have anything else to say about him? Do you think he's dead, like, if they make a sequel? I think he's gonna come back as, like, your ghost immortal boyfriend, or, like, maybe some sort of reincarnation, but he doesn't have his memories.
I don't know if they'd end up doing a sequel. I feel like there's a lot of room to do it. I think that if they do a sequel, maybe that big gaping hole, like, will be a benefit, where it's like, oh, you get more Celine, you get more, maybe her dad is still around somewhere, or more of that backstory. That's kind of the conflict in the villain. So I could see a sequel.
Yeah.
And if he would, he could come back. He could sort of be, I don't know, like, K-pop tuxedo mask.
Yeah, sure, something.
To Rumi's Sailor Moon.
So,
I mean, the golden like, the world is saved or whatever, so unless, like, her dad comes around, it's like, actually, I have a way in because of my daughter.
Well, maybe some demons got stuck above the surface, right?
Sure.
And that's what you could do, right? Or maybe there's demons in other mythologies that aren't affected by the whole moon in other countries, and so they have to go around, because, like, they say it's the world, but, like, do we know? I mean, like, why weren't people going missing anywhere else and
maybe
not
it's
outside
just
of Korea,
the plot,
right?
like, they're just gonna do the plot of the Hannah Montana movie where she has to go to a small town to get connected with her roots.
Maybe they go.
They sing the, like, climb and then the hoedown throwdown.
Something I saw someone suggest was like, oh, it's a TV show and every episode is a different touring spot, right? And so it's like Australia, right? And you're in Sydney, and it's like there's the A plot and there's the B plot, but it's happening in Australia because Australia needs its own barrier defense system, whatever. So they could do something like that, right?
With like the Veronicas, or like an Australian pop group
that
are
would
gonna,
be
like,
kinda
protect
cute.
all of Australia.
Well,
Who's
they
protecting?
could collab or something, like, something like that. I really liked their whole dynamic. I like that he realized that there was something more going on and that his intent to kill her sort of changed. I wrote down the little old guy singing Soda Pop was so cute but very sad. Oh yeah, my other thing was, like, so some of the souls at the beginning of the movie landed in the demon realm and they became demons, whereas some of them went to the fire of the king directly to feed him. So I wonder if it was, like, the king's choice, like, he can either make a bigger army using parts of himself, or he can use his fire to make demons, or they automatically come down there if they were already humans from Earth. Because there seems to be the humans from Earth who were contracted, right, like, with him, and those people seem to retain some of their human shape, whereas then you have, like, the demons that seem to be born just from him. I liked the romance between them. I didn't know if you were gonna like it, but I ended up really liking it.
I do think that it's less impressive with that kind of, Rumi's not as developed as him, and in her background and her motivations. But I quite liked it. I also liked that they couldn't just kill each other, so they were sort of just sniping at each other like petty pop stars. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I I think that what's interesting about him too is that we sort of have talked about in other videos like, oh, Disney's leading man problem, right?
He
obviously had dick moves,
like
but you could tell that there was the underlying vulnerability, and that's what I think the other Disney leading men are missing, right?
What was it when they first meet and he like looks so beautiful and then he does something?
Yeah, right. He doesn't help her up.
Yeah,
right?
he doesn't help her up.
No, so he's still like a dick, but like they did it the right way, where it's like they're supposed to be enemies at the beginning, whereas with Kristoff, it's like, there's no reason for you to not be nice. Like, you are just a random man out here in the snow, right? You could have just been a nice man. Flynn makes sense. When we're talking about copy and pasting from Tangled, Flynn makes sense because him and Rapunzel are in opposition. Of course he's not gonna be perfectly nice to her all the time. But then you get Kristoff, and then you get Maui, right? And then before Flynn, you have Naveen. And like, with Maui, we have gone a step, I think. Actually, Kristoff is the step too far. Because even Maui, you can argue that there has to be a little conflict between them for the plot to function, even though
he is a god,
I think
so
that
it
the
makes
journey
sense for his
would have been better if it was Moana's dad, but I have a whole thing about that in another video. But anyway, so yeah, my beef is like, Kristoff didn't have to be that way. There's no reason for him to be like this. And like, just Disney's leading men are getting more and more Oh, Jonathan, how could I forget, from Snow White, is like just the combination of Flynn Rider again, right? And so I really appreciated that there was nuance to Jinu's character, even though Hunter's right, like he is a dick, right? But
he's a dick, and then he learns that
Rumi that she's
is,
half demon,
and
right?
then he kind of opens up to her a little, and I think that was interesting.
That's what the male characters need, is the vulnerability. Like, that's the Powerpuff Girls secret ingredient that that Disney has especially been missing. So I think that lastly, because we've basically talked about the plot, the Demon King doesn't have that deep of motivations, but like, he's the fucking Demon King. Like, what do you want? Like, the whole moon killed my grandma or something? Like, we don't really need like anything crazy about him, right? So I think that like, the plot's pretty straightforward. We have a certain number of days to do the magical thing and like the power of friendship and all that stuff. I think that now we should probably talk about the songs, because the songs will probably lead into our praise or our problems, like, again.
I feel like we already kind of delivered.
Right. But I'm saying, like, the songs will continue to elaborate on some of the stuff that we didn't discuss already. Hi guys, it's Editing Cal here. So Hunter did a bit of a big misinformation when we originally recorded this 2 weeks ago. She said that she had read that the music was written entirely separately from the story, and that's not true. You know, obviously we all make mistakes, it's okay. I'm not sure how this happened though, and that kind of threw off our entire discussion in this section, so this is going to be me correcting this section. So yeah, before people are like, Cal, you gotta let Hunter talk. Hunter did talk, like, for this entire time. It was kind of her soapbox that she was on. Unfortunately, it's not correct, and I'm the only one who can record to fix it. So in this Mashable article, they said, before a single hook or beat drop was written, the team built a story-first blueprint. Every emotional arc, character trait, and turning point had to be mapped out to determine where music could elevate the narrative and what kind of song each moment demanded. Genre, tempo, top line, and even who should carry the course all stemmed from that scaffolding. And you can read this quote, the only difference was that there was a specific storyline and context we had to match the song and lyrics to, right? So that implies they knew the storyline and the context. Early on, we really decided there are two kinds of songs in this film. One is diegetic, live performances that the characters are aware of. The other is more internal monologue, things that the characters can't say out loud, but that come through in song. K-pop doesn't usually do that second part, storytelling through song, so that was an opportunity. We had to create lyrics that sounded like the characters and move the story forward. We had to write the storyline within the lyrics. That was the hardest part, balancing narrative with catchiness. The balance between having a complex storyline fit within a 3-minute pop song, making it PG friendly, and still sounding hip and cool was definitely a challenge. We created prompt sheets in collaboration with the directors, monologues from the characters' POV, notes on structure and timing, a vibe board of K-pop influences, and then spent time shepherding both songwriting and how it interacted with the picture. But my goal and role was really to let these artists create the thing that only they can create. I am not a Korean K-pop artist, so I really wanted to understand their world. Having a storyline set, it was a great North Star that guided me and my co-writers to write lyrics and melodies that fit the narrative. However, it was also very difficult since pop songs only have so many melodies, and if there are too many melodies or lines, the catchiness goes away. And you can also read here that they wrote them to accomplish what musical theater songs do while keeping them pop music feeling. Netflix released this article where the music producer even calls Golden like an I Want song, and they say for the opening they took inspiration from the Jet song from West Side Story, so that's really super cool. And what I wanted to impart in this section was the music here versus the music in Wish and Moana. And again, Hunter's bit got us a bit confused, so that's why I need to redo it, because it completely changes the meaning of what I had originally said. This could also probably be a whole different video I make in the future, like talking about the process of the songwriting, and I probably will do it, but again, since this is our overview of the entire movie, I wanted to mention it here. It's like Moana, right? We did a Moana 2 video, that doesn't mean I won't ever cover it again, or any of the songs, or anything like that, right? So I'm a little annoyed that they said sounding too Broadway and didn't want these songs to feel like musical songs, but generously, I think what they meant was the literal sound versus musical theater as a medium. They mean sound as in like old Broadway jazz, right? So some generosity on my part. I understand what they're saying. They're basically saying they didn't want it to sound too musical theater-y, like, you know, a Disney song, right? And contrary to what some of you guys think, I don't hate the idea of pop-inspired musicals. What I hate is when pop music is used for the sake of being like hip with the kids instead of having some sort of purpose. Like there's a place for both Sondheim type sound or like Rodgers and Hammerstein type sound or Alan Menken type sound and Lin-Manuel Miranda type sound. Our industry needs a bunch of different types of sounds. But lately, it seems like the people that are making musicals are picking the pop route, not because they think it'll elevate the story, but because they think it's a golden ticket to instant success, which makes it feel cheap and soulless. Like you have Snow White, which is set in like fictional fairy tale Germany, right? Where the original animated version was inspired by operetta, but instead of taking inspiration from folk songs and the music of that culture and sharing operetta to a new audience, well, yes, sure, modernize it a bit, right? Instead of doing that, you get Pasek and Paul just doing The Greatest Showman again. And even The Greatest Showman was begging, right, based on the time period that it's set in for a more classy, traditional Broadway sound. But again, we still get Pasek and Paul. Then you have Wish, which could have incorporated Asha's culture. They could have hired Black and Iberian musicians because she is Afro-Iberian. But they went with Julia Michaels, who not only is not from that culture at all, she has zero musical theater experience. Pop music doesn't seem like a choice in Snow White. It doesn't seem like a choice in Wish. It feels like an airbag that is meant to cushion the blow if the movie bombs. Like, oh, well, even if this sucks, at least it'll be a hit on the radio because this is what the kids like, right? As if Part of Your World wasn't a radio hit. But you can see that with K-Pop Demon Hunters, they had a very clear vision and a very clear purpose, which was using musical theater storytelling conventions while sticking with a very specific K-pop sound. And that's why the music works, because musical theater is not only a genre, it is a medium of storytelling. And it's going to work the best when you have the medium of storytelling tell the story, obviously, right? But then you pick a very specific sound that fits the characters and the setting. This movie works because they didn't just use pop music to try to jump on the trend or be like, well, how do you do, fellow kids, right? But because the choice of using the pop music actually elevates the story, the characters, the setting. It's part of their lives. And unlike Disney, who is giving their songwriters absolutely nothing to work with, like leaving the songwriters in the dark, vague and confused, like Julia Michaels writing this wish off of a summary of what the movie was going to be about without her getting a script or even like a scrap of what Asha's character was going to be like personality-wise at all. The songwriters here clearly had the information. But on the flip side, unlike Disney giving the songwriters way too much information to work with to the point where it's just, this is what we want and this is non-negotiable, song go here, like Lin-Manuel Miranda working on Mufasa, clearly the creative teams worked together. It wasn't just the directors micromanaging them and ordering them around. They trusted the artists. You see that in the article. So you can't have too little information, but you also can't stifle your artists with too much information. And this is an issue we talk about more in the Disney movie musical video, using songwriters like tools instead of treating them as storytellers. But clearly the songwriters working on the music were trusted to do so. They say they wanted to let the artists create and not micromanage them because the artists creating, they know best about Korean K-pop. Eisendrath says that he doesn't, right? Like he admits that that's a blind spot for him. And that's good because that's how we get people collaborating and people sharing with each other. And again, this is something we'll probably talk about in the future, but the lesson here I think is obvious. What they went through during the production of this movie seems a lot closer to how the songwriters were treated in the Disney Renaissance compared to how Disney themselves is treating their songwriters now. Like, this isn't even a Disney movie and they're doing it better than Disney, you know what I mean? They clearly respected musical theater and incorporated music into the film without feeling like they were obligated to make a musical or that a musical is just an easy way to make money. I think that genuinely that is Disney's mindset, but then they don't understand why it works. You know what I mean? I've said this in other videos that a Disney song is like that little piece of happiness and also marketing that you can take with you long after the movie's done. That's why I think in the public consciousness that their musicals tend to be remembered better compared to the other movies that don't have music, because music is that little thing that you can revisit every single day. And we talked about this in the Elio video, the idea that Disney is not in the business of making movies, they are in the business of selling nostalgia and memories in a sense. And I use this example of in Japan, coffee wasn't really as popular, right? So what the coffee company did, I think it was Nestle or whatever, what they did was they put coffee in like children's treats first and like chocolate and stuff. So you would have that nostalgia that as an adult, you're like, oh, I remember the coffee flavor from when we were kids. Now I'm an adult and I need to drink coffee, right? And like that sort of thing, right? And so we talked about in the Elio video, this idea of Disney is planting the seeds now. So an adult who loves Ariel, right, will go to the parks to meet Ariel, will spend money on Ariel merch because Ariel was a part of their childhood. But what we think is gonna go wrong with Disney, even if it's not immediate in like the next 20 years or so, is that there is nothing as standout as The Little Mermaid, as Lilo and Stitch, right, that have this sort of eternal feeling to them, right? Timelessness. I don't think that anyone's gonna be looking really at Elio or Wish and it's like, ah yes, the movie I loved as a kid which stuck with me up until adulthood, right? When you make movies that are only for kids, that have nothing else, you know, for the adults to appreciate, you're making movies that your audience will not grow up with, but that they will outgrow. I say that all the time, right? And so I feel like that even if it's not something that Disney's cognizant of now, they're putting basically what I'm saying is they're putting in music because they feel like, but that's what we have to do, right? Like that's the winning formula. We need to put in the music. But they don't understand that it's not just putting in music, right? It's putting in music that is representative of the movie, that brings you back to the first time that you watched the movie, that gives you something in your everyday life, whether it's, you know, hope, like something like Part of Your World or Out There does. Hope, power, self-confidence, right? You know, even just fun and entertainment that you can take with you. And so Disney's like, oh, but we need to make a musical. We're corporate mandated to make a musical. Nobody actually wants to make one. No one actually sees the value in making one, right? But here they saw the value in making it, not just to make money, but because it's intertwined with the stories and the characters in a way that it can't be removed. And I think the reason why the songs resonate with me so much as a theater kid is because they are within that medium of musical theater, even if they're not within that sound genre, and that's what I value most. I value the storytelling. Like, they make a good point in the article that most K-pop songs don't have like a storyline, but I think the reason why I like stuff like Hololive is because Hololive songs tend to, right? And it's the idea of a storyline really for me. And I think that the reason why the songs are able to find a wider audience is because it can also speak to people who wouldn't typically like musicals. So you really get the best of both worlds, right? You get the theater kids, but then you also get, I don't know, the normies or whatever that only like pop music, because you're able to speak to both of those things and blend them together. I feel like Wish and Snow White are disrespectful, like, to musical theater as the genre and musical theater as the storytelling medium, but this movie feels respectful to the medium while saying to the medium, look, we can't use a Broadway style sound here. That doesn't make sense. That's not our culture, you know what I mean? Like, the American Broadway sound style originated in America. We need this movie to have our sound, a very specific sound from a very specific niche, from a very specific culture, and you can see how well it works here. So yeah, Disney, treat your songwriters better and actually make some choices that make sense for the story music-wise, and you'll actually get the attention that Golden got, because people are now, like, newly dunking on the Moana 2 girls for saying that give it a month thing, right? I posted it earlier, give it a month, all the kids will be singing it, right? That arrogant thing that they said in the interview. People dunked on them at that time, now they're dunking on them again because of how much K-Pop Demon Hunters has succeeded. Nobody is singing the Moana 2 songs, but people are singing these songs, and I think that all of this and more is why. So we'll talk about the more. Again, I would really like to make another video about, like, oh, you know, why did this succeed while Wish failed, and, like, have that sort of divide in the thumbnail and all those clickbaity things and whatever. But yeah, I needed to amend this section because the conversation went into an entirely different direction with Hunter's proclamation that the music was written like Mamma Mia, where it was completely separate from the story, and I was like, how can that be true though? Because they reference stuff from the movie. That doesn't sound right. So yes, this is what actually happened. But yeah, let's get back to the video now. I would give this my musical theater seal of approval. Like, it's not your standard, oh, it's the opening number where we find out what the thesis of the movie is, but it is, to me, more of an effective musical than Wish was, or even Moana 2 was. It made better use of the music, even though it wasn't the traditional musical theater fare. And what I really like is that Disney has been doing, like, music video in the void lately, where the characters are singing, but they're just walking through their environment. Like, Moana 2 had this notorious one where she's just walking on the beach, and it's like a music video where it, like, it's her, and then it goes, like, bigger on her, and then it pans from her feet up her, or whatever, like, just weird shit going on, and where it was like she was singing in the void in a music video. What this did is that they were singing in their environment, and they were actually fighting, right, in the opening number, especially. And so even though it's not a regular musical, they made use of the space, and they didn't just have the characters, like, even in Wish, right, they sing in the environment, fine, but they're not actually singing with their environment. The environment's happening around them, and they're singing, if that makes sense, right? So what this did is that they are singing and fighting at the same time, and it's all cohesive, and it's not in the void, which made it feel more like a musical than I think I expected it to be, because it's not a musical theater, right? But I think that that's what gave it the essence of a musical, is that they were actually interacting with the story and the set, if you want to call the animated world their set, right? That it wasn't just, okay, well, suddenly we're in the void and we're singing disconnected from the story. But I think that it does, like, establish the thesis in the sense of there's this pressure on the girls to succeed. We find that out in the opening number. And then we also find out a little bit of their personalities, right? We have Hear Our Voice Unwavering, right? And that was great foreshadowing for the conflict with Rumi that would kind of thread throughout the entire narrative. So I'm like, I am serious. I think this is a better musical than Wish. Like, I feel like that everything makes a lot more sense. But, like, that may be a shocking thing for my viewers to hear from me, because this is not a musical. It doesn't have the opening number with Clopin explaining the entire story,
It is a musical film, but it's not a musical film, right? In that there's a lot of songs in it, and music is the basis of it. Yeah. But it's not constructed the way a typical music
And that's why I wrote, it feels like whoever wrote the songs actually got to see a script, and the songs in the script contributed to each other. I really liked Jinu's folk song. I thought that was great, because now we got to see kind of a more diegetic music, and we kind of get a sense because of the time period that he was part of. I like that he talks about the demon's crumbling crown as opposed to Rumi saying that she has the crown and she doesn't know if she's ready to wear it in golden. So that was nice to kind of juxtapose them to each other, like the Demon King and Rumi. Then I'm pretty sure that the next song is golden. So I can't stop listening to this song. This song is going to do diabolical things to my YouTube music rap at the end of the year. Yeah, because that's the one, and I think that the reason why is because that's the most musical theater one. It has all of them talking about their inner thoughts, right? And so you have Zoey, you have Mira's, you have Rumi's, and then we kind of have that, like, Elsa kind of alone in the room. Like, they did the exact almost shot with Elsa, like, sitting against the door that they do in Frozen, right? In the first Frozen. But, like, I liked
That's like kind of works as an I Want song for her.
Yeah, it works for an I Want song for all of them because they want to do the whole moon, right? They want to save the world, and so we understand what their fears are and what they all want.
Yeah.
So again, unconventional want song. It really, really works, and it has that kind of, again, for me, I really like that high energy, we're the idols, we can do it. Like, this is kind of a tangent, but whatever, this video is so long. It's funny because I play Hololive songs sometimes, and my mom mistakes them for songs on the Disney cruise, right? And so I'm like, but that's what it is, right? It's like, your vacation is starting, let's go, we're gonna have such a good time, right? Hololive kind of has some, like, DNA with that. I don't even know what you would call that style of music.
Cruise music?
No, not like.
I wonder if we're gonna. Is that the cha-cha slide? No,
Hunter, the original songs for the cruise. Like they have there's always more adventures to explore.
I was not aware that they did that.
And that's what a lot of like Hololive music kind of has. Like we're gonna connect the world, right? We're gonna sing the shimmering showcase. What?
You are a Disney adult that like hates Disney. It's like a baker with a gluten intolerance. It's the craziest shit to see.
The cruise is like different though, because the cruise they have the old material, you know what I mean, from before things got bad, right? Other than the ships that have like all the Marvel shit and whatever that I don't like. But like, you know, the Shimmering Sea song, it slaps a little bit, all right? I'm not gonna lie to you. I think that it slaps. So anyway, that type of music, especially when it has to do with performing, which the Hololive music does, like we're gonna connect the world. Shiny Smiley Story is another Hololive song where it's like, oh, this is our story and how brilliant performing is, and like it's all high energy like that. I think that this is kind of the perfect mixture, and that's why I really like it. It again reminds me of like the Hololive songs where they have references to the girls in their story, but it's like, oh, we're ready to take the world by storm and do this world tour stuff, right? So I think that that's why I've replayed the song so much.
I'm a shark. We're gonna take over the world.
Oh, man. But yeah, like, I think I really like this song. I've been playing it all the time because, you know, like, again, a song doesn't need to be relatable to you for you to listen to it, but I do find that the songs I have the most listening, the songs I stream the most, and we've talked about this before, where I was, like, speculating whether this is the case for everyone, but the songs that I stream the most are songs that I want to perform, that I sing. Like, I sing them in the shower, I sing them while doing the dishes. It's not to really listen to just the singer, it's to be like part of it. And because I love VTubers and I'm like, I want to be an idol too, right? So I think that that's kind of my motivation, and so that's why I really love this song. As a performer, it really like resonates and appeals to me. I couldn't really speak on like, you know, your regular person that's like doing their math homework and they're listening to the song. Maybe it's still motivating, right? Because it has a very hopeful, again, the bubblegum pop, like energetic, cheerful message. But like, that's just something I think about. I'm like, well, where are other people listening to this? How does it relate to their lives? Are you listening to Golden and you're like studying your ass off and you're like, let's do it? Like, what does it give you the motivation in your own life? Like, when are the cases that you listen to it? Because for me, it is imagining, like, the performing aspect. I listen to songs like this before I go to an audition and be hype and, like, cheery for the audition, you know?
I wonder if, like, somewhere out there's, like, a Catholic priest that does exorcisms who's listening to the demon hunting K-pop music.
Oh my gosh.
Like, yeah, this is right just for me. My job.
You know? But yeah, so that's why it's always hard for me to, like, articulate, because I'm like, well, this appeals to me very specifically as a performer, but how does it resonate to other people? It must be like the message of it, right? Like the idea of that this is like their moment and they're shining. Like everybody wants to shine, right? Like that's a core probably human experience of it, is like feeling like you had to hide in the past, but now you have like a group of people where you can be yourself around. Like it's a very hopeful message, right? But yeah, I like Rumi's part where she was alone. I like how the soundtrack sort of completed the ending of it. Again, like I said, diabolical things are gonna happen to my YouTube rap because I listen to it. I listen to it every day. Like it's become part of my, like, I listen to Idol from Oshinoko, I listen to Connect the World, and now I listen to Golden, and like those are the songs that I listen to as I get ready.
You have the weirdest like taste in music sometimes.
Why?
It's just very funny.
Oh man, Soda Pop. It's nice. I appreciate the lyrics that allude to eating people. And like, yeah, like, but it's pretty basic as a song compared to Golden. We're not getting these deep sort of like, oh, this is my inner desire and fear, right? Because again, it's not a musical, so I'm not holding it by that standard. But lyrically, like, it does have some like, again, this is a movie for kids, so they're pretty blatant, but they're not bad. They're blatant and they're obvious, so it's not like, oh my god, this musical lyrical genius, but I do like how they incorporated this idea of, on the surface, it seems like, oh, we're in love with you, like a lot of K-pop idols, like, you know, we love your brown, bluish, greenish eyes and whatever, but it's like,
I love
under
your hands
that,
'cause your fingertips are like no other.
it's like, we're gonna eat you. I thought that was very clever, and I like the soda pop thing, because it sounds cute. I'm like, Arnold, you're my little soda pop, though we just say that to each other. Just completely out of context. Why are you laughing?
Because I know Arnold. So in my head, I'm just imagining this man behind his computer going, thanks, Cal.
Oh, my one problem with that scene, though, is I do wish that there were consequences for the girls' actions, because they were like stepping on people's corn dogs and shit and no one noticed. So I thought what was gonna happen is that they were gonna get exposed and their reputation was gonna be damaged, and then they would have to work with the boys to be like, oh no, it's not like that. Like, see, we're actually working together. Like, I thought that was gonna happen, and then it didn't, and I was surprised because I'm like, they were diabolical during Soda Pop. Like, they were doing non-idol-like behavior.
They don't really, I mentioned that earlier, that they don't really lean into the whole, like, what it's like to be a pop star. And
and I know they were in disguise, but, like, okay. The game show scene, this wasn't a song, I was just writing stuff down. Like, the game show scene, I thought that was kind of funny that they, like, knew that they were there and took advantage of their presence to use that for...
And that's also just a thing that happened
promotion.
Korea,
The other complaint that I had, I know we're getting off topic from songs, but I'm just looking through my document at what we missed. I felt like the doctor's office was a little too convenient in terms of giving the audience what the characters were afraid of and what their flaws were. And then with Mira, we didn't get anything at all. Like, I wish it was like something magical, like a fortune teller. Like, I don't know if fortune telling is very popular in Korea.
They should have done the athletics thing.
Oh my god.
Where they end up, where they do like, I don't know, like fencing or something.
I just felt like that was a little bit unmagical. Like, I wish it was a fortune teller. I wish they went to Celine to figure out what the problem is against Rumi's will. Like, she doesn't want to go see Celine, and then Celine gives her some bullshit because Celine knows what the actual... Right? Like, I just wish it was more magical than, like... I guess he's a quack, right? Like, that's what we call him.
What's the joke? Yeah.
Like, he's not a real doctor.
No.
Like, he's just kind of bullshitty. But if we were gonna go that bullshitty, just do, like, a fortune teller or something, because at least it can be like, oh, you seem eerily accurate.
Well, they line into her, like, not being able to hit the notes and all that stuff.
Yeah, I guess. So I guess that makes sense why they would go to a doctor, but I'm like, we couldn't give them a magical doctor? I don't know. That's a nitpick.
Also, you had Ken Jeong in the movie, and you didn't have him play the doctor. Because he used to be a doctor before he became a comedic actor. So that's a shame.
But yeah, my other question was, how often are groups like this actually in competition with each other? Like, maybe they should have made them all girls, but then that may have not made sense with Jinu. I think Jinu being in disguise as a woman and then getting like a Mulan reveal later would have been funny, but like a reverse Mulan.
You know,
almost.
they don't make surprise you're gay actually like they did in the 90s, you know?
Girls are the biggest part of any fandom. right?
Or
I think
certainly those
mostly,
kinds of fandoms, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, you know, obviously there's stuff like Star Wars and stuff, but like women built fandom, you know what I mean? Like
Yes,
Star Trek
yes,
and
yes,
stuff
yes,
like
yes.
that. There's a whole, you guys can look
Irrefutably.
that up, right? So like, I feel like the girls are gonna be a large basis no matter what, but you're ultimately going to the groups for different
All
things.
the, like, the stereotype
right?
of the K-pop stans are young women.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I just can't imagine, like, picking a girl group over a boy group. Like, I may pick a girl group over another girl group, but not necessarily choose the boy group over the girl group, because they provide different things. It's like the HoloLive example, right? It's like, I wouldn't pick to support one over the other. I may have a favorite girl and a favorite guy, but they can't replace each other because they're providing two different. So if you guys know more about that, let me know. But I was like, wouldn't it make more sense if they were all women? But anyway, I guess that they wanted to do the commentary about how male idols are treated, right? I think that that's what they were going for. So it makes sense, but it was just something on my mind where I'm like, well, in
I don't
reality,
think any of them
you
get
wouldn't
treated very well,
really
frankly.
be like in competition with a boy group if you're a girl group, because the girl group provides a fundamentally different experience, right?
Maybe.
I think,
here's
but
the thing.
I don't know.
feel like we're not the K-pop fans.
No,
so
no.
The K-pop fans in the comments can
You guys can
educate
tell us. But like, I'm just drawing on my HoloLive and my other like J-pop experience. I'm like, yeah, these demographics like don't really overlap for the same reason. It's like, I can watch Love Island and also watch Star Trek. These things aren't diametrically
enough,
opposed to each other,
Yeah.
right? They don't fill the same void, whereas a different sci-fi show may take up my time, like that sort of thing, right? Okay, so after Soda Pop, there's Strategy, which is actually recorded by Twice, and it's a background song. It is not sung by them, right? Then there is Free, which is the love song between them, which I haven't listened to that much, admittedly, but I really like how both of their voices blend together. I think it's a nice song, the romance song between them. I think it was done really well. Again, Golden is really like my favorite, like that's where my favorite child
I do
lies,
think,
right? But I think the love
Golden is
song
the
was
best.
done well to showcase their vulnerability with each other. It also had some nice like musical orchestration from what I remember, right?
It so I don't know very much about K-pop groups or boy
Sure.
groups in general. It's probably like the 8th time I've said this so far.
Right.
But that song reminds me of a joke in American Dad where one of the characters plays starts a band called a boy band called B12.
Oh.
And there's 12 boys.
Vitamins?
Yeah, no, the band is called B12.
Okay, yeah.
And their first and only song is called "We're B12," and it's just them introducing. But there's 12 of them, so it's a whole 3-minute song of just them like, "Hi, I'm me." So it's like, oh, I guess that's just like that's the stereotype, like of like, hey, let us introduce ourselves, sort of opening song that I guess those groups do.
Yeah, maybe.
I thought Golden was like it was really fun as that. It worked.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna listen to any of these songs.
No, but that's just because they're not
my
taste,
thing,
right?
but they worked within the movie. There's only
Yeah.
really one that I didn't like,
Oh,
which
interesting. Well, we haven't gotten through all
Okay,
of them
yeah,
yet.
then
We still
I'll-
have Takedown,
Takedown was the one I didn't particularly like.
which is interesting because you're kind of not supposed to almost, right? Like it was
'Cause
the
it-
song
yeah,
that they
it's
didn't
the song
want to
where
sing,
like they
right?
didn't want to sing. I think how they used it was really interesting. How it's and you think it's going to be used. The whole tension's like, should they use it against the Saja boys?
Yeah.
But then they end up using it
And
against
for me, it was
Rumi.
like really obvious. Like, no, don't use
Yeah,
that. That
but,
doesn't
like,
unite
way
the fucking fans,
that
right?
like twist at the end is really good. So how
Yeah.
they used it in the movie was really well done. The song itself was like, yeah, we're gonna take you down, and it just wasn't all that biting or all that. I don't know.
I think I liked it. There was only one. There were a couple odd lyrics which were a little on the nose, I think. Oh, I wrote down randomly because I did scene by scene notes, and then I was like, this is too much work. We're not going through all
I
that.
feel like-
but like the songwriting process felt realistic
Just the- yeah,
to
like,
me
I
when
like-
they
yeah.
were writing it.
I like
but
how they show you how, which is hilarious because pop stars really don't write their own songs much of the time, especially not K-pop stars. They definitely don't.
But there was a lyric that was like, it's so obvious. And I was like, that's a little like during Takedown. And I was like, every time I hear it, it takes me off guard. But I know that like in the context of the movie, the reason why it's so, like, Rumi's trying to say, like, it's so obvious I should know that all demons are evil. But, like, every time it comes up when I'm listening to it on the soundtrack, I laugh because I'm like, this is so funny.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, an awkward lyric, it's so obvious. I understand in the movie why they did that, but it's so awkward to listen out of context.
The fact that they call it, one of my favorite YouTube videos is, it's a list, it's just a video, it's a series of videos called best non-hip-hop diss songs.
Sure.
And it's all these sort of, because like you are aware of like the sort of famous hip-hop diss tracks, but these are all sorts of songs of people like being really bitchy at each other. And it's amazing how creative people are and how cruel they are and like needly. Even songs that like, I don't know, that like Sabrina Carpenter like man-child song about how like pathetic and annoying I found this character, even if it's not about a specific person. You get that in pop songs and you get that in hip-hop songs. Way worse. I don't think it's gonna be like Kendrick Lamar versus Drake, that these cute K-pop girls are gonna call the Saja boys.
I don't think we can say that.
You're not gonna get a Kendrick Lamar Drake thing. You could get those really mean-spirited like pop songs like Taylor Swift needling exes.
I mean,
that's just kind of not that. It's so
generic.
Lyrics were
okay, but the reason why it's generic is because we don't know anything about the boys, right? And
that's
so
true.
It can't go any
like
deeper.
you really, that's exactly that. Like
but
you
the
know,
full version is a bit more like interesting.
Okay.
Like,
but how it is, because I can really only judge it as a film and how it's presented in the film. How it's presented in the film is just not that interesting.
Well, I think how they use it with Rumi,
until they do that.
Before, when they're writing it, it's like,
but it's also more interesting because of that twist, and I didn't really see it coming. As a song, like, I don't know, you could have been more creative with it, because, like, that soda pop song, it's just kind of, like, generic, bubbly pop music.
Yeah.
What you said earlier about me not liking happy music, that's not totally true, but I do think you need a little something extra about it.
Yeah.
And, like,
I mean, for me, the extra part is
I didn't get the veiled illusions about eating people.
You didn't?
That is
that was
pretty
so
funny.
obvious.
That is pretty funny, so maybe if I listen to it again, I will think it's funnier, but just the aesthetics were so bubbly, I kind of zoned out a little. I don't like this music, but I did like it.
The boys' song that they sing at the like, the idols broke up, let's hold the concert for you. That one had a lot of like traditional, a little bit, like not super deep cut like instruments, but it did have a bit more traditional orchestration. It had the Dies Irae in it, so I thought that was really unique. Someone did like a translation of like what all the lyrics mean, and basically that it's a reference to this like religious story. So I thought that was really cool that the lyrics actually like they put more thought into it than like, oh, the scary Dies Irae. Like they actually made sure that it meant something and that I referenced something. But yeah, like that song, I thought that song was interesting because there's a kind of insight into Jinu's mindset. Like part of it is pretty like basic, like in terms of like, I'm gonna be your idol, right? But there was an interesting thing where it's like, let me be the one who saves you, and then it switched to no one like is going to save you. And I thought that was interesting for Jinu's mindset. Like you see how desperate he is and how he genuinely thinks that there's no other way out of it. So I'm always a sucker for you have the lyric and then you change it just a little bit, but when you hear it again, the meaning's completely different, right? So I think that that's a good example of that. Yeah, there were a couple of other lyrics where I'm like, yeah, I'm a sucker for this, like, final song, which I've also been listening to nonstop because it's so, like, orchestral and big, and it feels like the big, you know, finale number, and I like the violins in it. I'm a sucker for the violins, but, like, we were cowards, we were liars, we're not heroes, but we're survivors. I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit of a sucker. Like, is that the most groundbreaking lyric in the world? No, but did it get me? Yeah, it got me a little bit, okay? So there's a couple moments. You gave me your heart, now I'm here for your soul. That was it again in the Idol Boys one. Living in your mind now, and then the mine now. I don't know what the lyric going up to that, but mind now. I'm a sucker for that sort of stuff, right? When they all went on stage together, like, this is the song that we couldn't write until this point. I thought that was very, very well done. And then the audience all joining in to sing, like, it just gets me, okay? I tend to think that I have high standards for my lyrics and stuff, but I can deal with a certain level of, like, basic, if that makes sense, as long as it, like, hits in terms of the story. Like, it's not the craziest lyric in the world,
and that's
but
how...
it does its job in terms of, like, connecting you to the characters. And I really, like, that just really resonated. The finale song really resonated with me, and how it was like, this is the song they've been struggling to write for the entire movie, but now they can finally sing it because they're all being honest. Again, a sucker for stuff like that.
For me, it's like, I was never gonna really love these songs, but they work very well in the film. And that's kind of what you want. Because I don't expect, like, because, you know, like, musicals, you don't always expect to, like, want to listen to all of them all the time. Always. They just need to work.
Yeah.
For, like, I enjoyed them as they were going, as I was sitting there watching.
Yeah, you never want to be like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, why is this song here?
I mean, I say I enjoy them. I was maybe like, I'm sure other people would enjoy them more, I guess. But, like, the visuals were interesting. I think that looking into the background of the production of the film, they did a lot of work in trying to have very realistic, like, not only K-pop music videos, but the lighting that they have for their sort of live shows. And just visually, it was so impressive that, I don't know, even if, like, the music doesn't really speak to me personally, it worked very well.
Well, I will say that I agree with you, Hunter, in terms of, like, on a random day, I'm not gonna necessarily be turning on the tavern song from the Hunchback of Notre Dame musical, right? Like, the songs do belong in the shows that they belong in, but a marker of, I think, a breakout, right, musical theater experience is when there's at least one or two songs that can be listened to outside of their original context and can be enjoyed. So, like, Part of Your World, Out There, the villain songs usually, right? I mean, depending on your mood, I guess, but, like, those are the... Well, yeah, maybe. Memories on My Own, right? Those sort of classic ones, right? So there's a specificity of musical theater, but then clearly they resonate on a deeper level with the audience. And so, like, you're right, but I would like to add the asterisk to that. Something that Disney could learn is that vagueness does not guarantee success. These songs are pretty specific given what they are. More specific than Wish's songs, and they are very successful because they were able to have the specificity that was necessary for the movie, even though, again, it's not a musical number, but also not be afraid of being specific and not afraid of embracing the fact that, yes, this did come from a movie and has context. But yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of the movie. I guess we didn't talk about the final scene between them, but I really liked that Jinu was set free from his guilt because he finally saved someone.
Which is the kind of the broader theme of the film, is about, like, being free of guilt and how that can affect you.
Yeah.
And which is why, you know, them not really hammering home or not hammering home, but them not really
diving into that with Celine.
Them not really nailing that for the main character is a bit of a sort of, like, substantial flaw in the film. But how they sort of, I don't know, how they put a bow on the thematic ending of it.
But I really liked
quite nice.
The integration of the songs. I've been listening to them like crazy. Again, you know, it's surprising to me because I listen to this type of music, but again, I didn't think it was going to be so musical, but I do feel like it is musical. I do think that it has more musical theater in it than I thought. Like, I have some radical thoughts of what musical theater can be. Like, not everything is musical theater, but, like, Royal Scandal is a musical because it has characters singing as themselves, like fairy tale characters singing, and they are singing in character, and they are singing what they feel in their hearts.
Is a musician biopic a musical?
I don't know. See, that's what I had a chart, and I was like, this would be a really funny thing to do with Hunter. I had like a Venn diagram of like where certain things go and whatever, like kind of like a D&D sort of like chaotic, evil, like that sort of stuff. So anyway, to talk about the ending, Arnold said he wished there was more of an epilogue because they bring up these things like, oh, hundreds of people are disappearing. Like, did all those missing people die? Did they restore the missing people? Like, I feel like I needed some newspaper clippings or something to kind of understand the damage that has been done, because I'm assuming that, like, when the demons were fed to the Demon King, they're not coming back. But at the same time, like, thousands of people going missing is not something, like, the Korea economy would be in the economy in Korea would be in shambles with that many people gone, right? I know it's just a kid's movie, but I could have used some, like, maybe after, like, maybe that's what they could have done. Like, that after they set the whole moon, all of the people that were stolen during this duration return and they all pop back up or something.
I also think
not to
there's,
necessarily
like, a weird...
undo the stakes, but I'm like, all of those people went missing and no one cares. I need the B-movie of, like, a detective trying to figure out where the fuck all these people went, right? Like, if they had returned everyone and everyone just sort of had memory loss,
I think
that
the idea is that, like, the
better,
spirits are free, so they're not, like, in hell. There's some... I don't know.
Right,
I don't know
but
if
you
you've noticed
understand what I'm
about this
saying?
film
Like,
where
I'm
they've been
saying,
kind of
like,
loosey-goosey
the shipper
about
girl
the
got
lore.
kidnapped. The old guy in the shower, his soul got, right? And I'm like, well, his soul got, but I thought he slumped over and died, so that's not a disappearance. So, like, some people were dying, and then some disappeared. If massive amounts of people were found dead, like, from old people to young people, like, the government would be like, oh my god, is there some sort of mysterious illness? Like, I need the sequel B-story of, like, House and a detective, where there's a bunch of doctors and, like, the Korean equivalent of the FBI trying to figure out where are all these people, right? Because that was kind of one of the inconsistencies, was that old man, I swear to God, that when they take his soul, he slumps over and the implication is he's dead, which is, very sad. Other people were just straight up stolen, so I need to know, did those people come back? I don't think that they did, but that's kind of crazy. I know it's a kid's movie,
Unless
but that's
the
nuts.
spirits, I don't know, yeah, as previously mentioned, they're a little light on the lore
Which is
here.
hilarious because, like, again, we're just, I have a bunch of, like, notes that we didn't use, but, like, there was an ASL translator on the news in one of the newscasts. Like, someone worked to put, like, that detail in, but not the detail of where the missing people, and I love those little details. I love it.
I mean, I guess the idea, I think
know,
my interpretation of it, the souls are free at the end, so they go to, like,
like
Korean heaven.
Right.
But
like,
everyone else
But what
is,
happened
you know,
in Korea?
They're
like,
dead. I
yeah,
guess
I know,
they're
but
dead.
like, is no one worried?
I guess they are. I don't know. Like, people die all the time, I suppose.
know, but that's a lot of people. And they're all
also,
dead.
the notion that a lot of the demons were, like, previously people is kind of wild, because they like, oh, you murdered people. Or no, I guess when you die, they just are sent back to hell. So I guess they don't really, when the girls defeat the demons, they don't die. They just send them back to, like,
yeah,
hell.
like, I think some of the souls were freed, but then the demons that were, like, born demons were sent back with the Demon King. You know?
Sure.
And so, yeah, that was just a little bit, like, confusing. I don't need all the answers. I get it. But, like, a singular answer would have been nice. I do like that they use shame, though. I'm assuming that that has some sort of, like, function in Korean, like, mythology and stuff like that. As opposed to sin, which is, like, your Catholic guilt, you know, right? And so I think that shame as opposed to sin was really interesting, and I like what they did with that.
You want to know what's another big, like, plot kind of hole they never mentioned?
Sure.
How, like, Rumi, at the end of the movie, she reveals all these crazy tattoos
Yeah, that's the other thing
and
I
no
was
one's
thinking.
like, whoa, tattoos?
That's why I could have used
Especially
a montage
'cause,
of, like, oh, the girls are talking on the newscast about,
my understanding
like,
is that,
Rumi's new tattoos, or, like, you know, there was mass memory wiping and none of them remember, and so she, like, has the tattoos but no one else can see them because that's what the boys were, right? The boys' tattoos were kind of flickering on their body and only Rumi noticed. So does everybody see them, or did we just gaslight the public? Like, I could have used, like, in my head, right? I'm imagining the girls on the news, like, oh no, we never broke up, like, there was just technical difficulties, oh, like, something like that. Oh, second bumper, now we're going on hiatus. Oh, another bumper. Oh, the mysterious people have returned, but there's a mass memory loss epidemic. Oh no, other news bumper. Like, I could have just used some newspaper clippings of, like, let's explain what happened to these people.
And also, I think, like, whereas in Canada, you know, I see, like, police officers and doctors with tattoos. I do believe that, like, heavy tattoos are still very taboo in Korea.
At least
so,
I
like,
know in Japan
I like
they are,
yeah,
right?
I know. I just find the idea really amusing. That's like, huh, tats, okay. Like,
yeah, I'm assuming other people can't see.
It would be like
right?
if Taylor Swift out of nowhere had like an eye tattoo, like a prison
Teardrop
tattoo or something, a
Is that what
facial
you're talking
tattoo.
about? Okay, I know we've been recording forever, but I'm gonna cut up this. It's gonna make sense, I promise. Okay, so there's one more thing I wanted to talk about in terms of, like, a criticism thing. So I don't know where Hunter stands on this. I don't like that the singers are not the voice actors for pretty much all of them. I understand that an animated movie is not a musical, but it really pisses me off because it's basically saying that, like, oh, you're good for the singing voice, but you can't fucking act. Like, I'm not saying in this case, like, I know in this case, because they're singing and some of the lines are in Korean, like, maybe the singers can't act. I don't know.
Weirdly, they got a singer to play Selena, and
Celine,
she
barely
and she
sings,
only
right?
acts.
Well, no, I
wild.
think she sings a little bit. She sings the song about, like, the song at the beginning of the movie
Okay,
about, like,
right,
oh, the
okay,
demon
okay,
hunters,
yes.
like, were fearless or faults shall never be, whatever. She sings, like, that little thing that, like, child Rumi sings to herself. I get it, kind of, but then part of me is like, well, what the fuck, right? I find it a little insulting to, like, performers when you're like, you're good for your singing voice, but you're not acting in this movie, and you get someone else to do the acting. Maybe in this case it was warranted. I did, like, look through, like, the singer's voice versus the voice talents, but it is a pet peeve of mine. I was disappointed to see that, especially because this is a movie where they are singing diegetically, and you can tell that Rumi's speaking voice is not the same person as her singing voice. I mean, at least I can tell. I don't know if a child would tell, I don't know if you guys were able to tell, but it was very obvious to me when they went from speaking, like, I think the most noticeable point is when Free starts, and then also, like, the ending song where Rumi's singing a cappella. It's like a switch flips and suddenly she's a different person. So my thing is that you should always be singing your role. If your role has singing, you should be doing both, and that's my controversial opinion.
I feel like this is like your boomer opinion. Where,
yeah,
like, kids
kinda.
these
This
days,
isn't very popular.
back in my day, we used to have to sing and dance and
kinda.
act both ways to school and back in the snow being chased by a bear.
Bothers you, but that's the only thing that I was kind of annoyed about. I was like, I know it's not a musical, but I hate that justification of, oh, well, it's animation, and so now, like, this is the best time to do it when no one will notice. And I'm like, I fucking noticed, right? You know,
I didn't.
I noticed.
I didn't. But then again, I don't have ears for this thing. You are the expert. I guess personally it doesn't bother me. It's trickier live action.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, you kind of want him to do that. Just because of the, like, with animation, you can fudge it a little easier.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. So, like, you know.
There are some, like, from some movies I've seen from the 70s where it's, like, it is awful how much you can tell that, like, yeah, that's not actually your voice.
Yeah, like,
Versus,
it shocks me how, now that you mentioned live action, how many people were like, they should have gotten someone to dub over Gal Gadot. And I'm like, no, they should have just cast a fucking better singer. What do you mean? Like, why does it still need to be her? That looks are more important. You know, that, like, oh, well, suddenly the looks are more important than the voice, right? I think
if it makes you feel any better, they lost money on that one.
I know. But yeah, that's just my one thing. I'm like, would it kill you guys to cast actors who can sing, please, next time? So I know we've been talking a really long time, but I have littered the lessons that Disney could learn throughout the video. Like when I talked about Jinu and I talked about, like, oh, people singing in the void, right? I don't want Disney to just be like, oh yes, that's what we need to do. We need to make a K-pop movie. That's not,
put it past them, frankly.
what I was saying with this YouTube title and thumbnail. I think that it's more so this idea that this movie is in a very specific niche, right?
Yes.
It has a non-Western culture at the forefront of the movie.
Yes.
And then it also has, like, a more, like, niche culture in terms of, like, K-pop. Now, obviously, K-pop's worldwide now. You have, like, what Hunter was saying earlier. Oh my god, what are the boys? The boys.
BTS?
Yeah, you have, like, BTS, you have Twice, you have, you know, all these other groups that have broken containment, I guess you could say, right? But to Disney, this is going to seem like a very specific, like, thing, right? But it had clearly the core human experience that a lot of people can relate to. And I know Hunter mentioned earlier this idea of, like, the generational trauma and stuff like that. Like, you have that, but then there's also, like, almost the more simplified version of that
shame.
where we all have shame and we all, you know, sometimes feel like that we've disappointed our families or our legacy, or we're not, like, holding up to the standards that people have set for us, regardless of whether it's our family or not, right? And so I think that that's why it's resonating so much. And if I wanted Disney to learn a lesson, it's like, Arnold watched this movie. He's 35 years old, right? You know, he is not the the target demographic for the K-pop movie, but he really, really liked it, right? And so, you know, there's a lot of women, obviously, because most online fan bases are made up of women, but like a whole bunch of people from different, you know, walks of life are really enjoying this movie. And so you have Disney, and then later I want to do a video with Hunter about poor Elio and Pixar and stuff. You have Pixar being like, we don't want to piss anybody off, so we're gonna be as generic as possible. We need to focus less on messages, which is like code for diversity, and instead focus on entertainment, which is code for making movies with white people again, right? So I think that Pixar's really learning the wrong lesson here, where it's like, you had movies about fucking fish, okay? People are not fish, yet we still relate and find something to enjoy about Finding Nemo. Also, can I just mention too, I know we're getting off, but it is baffling to me that the Pixar guys, like, we need to go back to making movies that are fun without messages, as if WALL-E, A Bug's Life, which has worker revolution.
Toy Story is about growing, like, is about,
Toy
like,
Story,
aging.
like, doesn't have, like, complex messages. Like, Up starts with fucking death. Like, what are you talking about? And, like, still political messaging, right? Like, everyone can cook no matter what background you're from. WALL-E has, like, the destruction of the earth and how the human race got complicit. The Bug's Life has, like, the worker revolution part of it, right? And so it's not even like, oh, we can have messages as long as they're not political. They're like, oh, the only messages are political ones. Well, that's not fucking true. Your movies used to have political messages in them. What are you talking about? So that's the baffling thing, is like, there's this push to make everything more generic to appeal to people, and that's not what Disney and Pixar did. They had very specific stories that everyone could relate to, and I think that this is a good example of what that is, right? And so it just pisses me off, and it baffles me a little bit. Like, I wonder what lesson, if any, they will take from the success of this movie, because it's not their company, right? So they may be like, whatever, like, whatever Sony's doing doesn't fucking matter to us. But, you know, the reason why I had all this, like, is this a good musical? Like, all these, like, you know, kind of clickbait questions at the beginning was like, it is a better musical than Wish and fucking Snow White, even though it wasn't made to be a musical. It is a better movie thematically than anything they've been doing recently. I don't think it's overrated at all. Again, I think it has its problems, and maybe people are glossing over that a little, but the reason why they're glossing over that is because they're seeing the miracle for what it is. Like, the fact that this even got made kind of in the first place, and has so much heart in it, and it's not just like generic fucking slop. Like, that's why it's doing well, because you can tell that someone actually gave a shit. And that's really what Disney, I think, is missing out on. And so we had this conversation before we recorded, like, no, we don't want Disney to do exactly like this, but, like, they need to learn from the success of this, that not everything needs to be, like, fucking vague and middling, you know?
I will say, though, in defense of Disney, this went out on Netflix.
Right.
Like, if this went to the theaters, maybe it would have, like, done really well. Maybe it wouldn't have. Maybe it would have been like, oh, you know, underrated movie. Because, like, not enough people went to see it, but it was actually really good.
Right,
like,
right.
You don't know. Disney is still putting all these movies out in theaters. Right?
Well, but
where they have more room to fail.
They didn't originally want to do that, though, for, like, Lilo and Stitch, and I think even Elio was supposed to be on Disney+. So, like, I know what you're saying, Hunter, but isn't that also their own fault? Because they took things that they made for TV and they were like, we can fix it. No, you can't! You can't fix it! What do you mean? Moana 2, another made for Disney+ originally that they shoved into the theater, right? But yeah, I know what you're saying, like, there's more sort of stakes to fail, but they aren't succeeding, so clearly they have to do something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Moana made a lot of money, but, like, critically not a success. Snow White failed, so that evened it out. Wish also failed. And the lesson that they're probably gonna take is that people want things that are, sequels of other stuff. Like, even Pixar said recently, oh, we're trying to do one sequel, one original movie, and alternate them, or something like that. Yes. And I'm like, yeah, okay, in theory, that makes sense. That's kind of the thing that we have on this channel, where I'm like, a video I know will do well, and then one it's you know, is gonna do less well.
It's like COVID, all these big movies went to streaming, and it just kind of devalued the theatrical experience for a lot of people.
And so you
And
need
it's
something to get people back in the theater, and something that is vague is just not going to do that. It is not worth the money.
And how I think how maybe K-pop Demon Hunters would have worked is that, so you know how like BTS and all these like bands have like #1 hit songs in America?
Yeah.
They kind of don't. So the way that
Explain.
the Billboard Hot 100 works is that it used to be radio play and the number of like CDs or
Sure,
vinyl
yeah.
or whatever you sold. But then starting in the 2000s, digital sales count for more,
Right.
right?
Okay.
And then in the 2010s, streaming becomes, and it becomes incredibly easy for not very much money to basically, you know, listen to all the music in the world.
Yeah.
So because of that, Billboard kind of ranks how people view music in like a hierarchy. So
Right.
at the very bottom, if you stream a song, that barely counts. Because
Okay.
it's a stream, you didn't pay for any money, you know, it
Yeah.
was just whatever. If you buy it digitally, that counts a little more because you actually spent money. If you bought it physically, that counts even more
Right.
because it's a lot more money. What K-pop stands will do
I
is they
think
will
I'm seeing where you're
they will
going with this.
mass buy CDs and like digital download on like they'll buy it on iTunes, then they'll buy it
Yeah.
on Bandcamp, then they'll buy it on
There's also a
right?
more physical merch culture as
Yes,
well.
and you will buy like all these sort of like you'll buy the CD and the vinyl. Do you own a record player? No, but you'll buy the vinyl.
Yeah.
You'll buy an 8-track. So like it like artificially inflates that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not bothered by that because the history of the Hot 100 is littered with like ways of cheating the system.
Sure.
I only say that to say that this is an incredibly dedicated group of people who are able to, relative to their like, are able to punch above their weight.
Yeah.
Relative to their actual size, are able to make a much bigger like.
It's almost like whales, like in
Impact.
gacha games, right? Like you have
Yes.
the whales, and they're a small number, but they spend a lot of money.
Exactly. So like they are kind of the whales. Like they are in the same way that like Disney, you know, back in the day having like kind of like, you know, winks and nods to gay audiences.
Right.
Gay audiences were tastemakers. So by like, you know, by pandering to them, for lack of a better word, you
Yeah.
kind of end up like, well, then the tastemakers like it, then it trickles down, and then all the normies like it. I think they were just very smart to do a K-pop movie, because then all the K-pop fans are going to be talking about how great it is, and they're going to be doing fan art and all these sorts of things.
Yeah,
You know,
I
and then
agree.
people will see the big impact it made and think, yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
you're
pretty
right,
good.
because, you know, the normies, right?
'Cause I
So
don't give a
many
crap
Rumi
about
tubers
K-pop.
are watching, like, the movie, and they're like, okay, yeah, I cried, right? And they're not really the type of
Yeah.
demographic that would enjoy
I like
that
animated
stuff
film,
usually,
but
right?
like, you know, they were smart to tap into to pander to that audience. So what Disney needs to do is start bringing back the clearly gay-coded villains to tap into the gay market, so the tastemakers, and then they go down.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
or like, you know,
you're not
Zootopia
wrong.
does well, so
The furries,
go to
right?
the furries,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Go to the K-pop people, the K-drama people.
It's interesting how long it's been since Disney has done an animal movie. Like, when you think
Yeah.
about it, they used to do Robin Hood. You had Bambi,
They,
right?
the Walt Disney Corporation raised a generation of
Of
furries,
furries, and where
whether
are
or not
they?
it was Zootopia, or it was the Lion King,
Yeah,
or it
that's
was the Robin Hood movie. Like they're a linchpin
Yeah,
of
where
this
did all the furries go?
organization.
You know
where
what
did
I
all
think
the
it
furry
is?
goes?
You know, it's hilarious. I know we're getting so off topic. I
Yeah.
don't care. The video's 2 hours long. But you know what's interesting is, like, I wonder if it's because it's harder to animate. Like, I have heard from, like, Erin, for example, who's our friend that worked on Ruby and animated for Ruby and had to animate the cat, and like how hard the cat was to animate, right? So it was difficult to draw 2D like the tiger from the Jungle Book, because he had to turn around and his spots needed to be, his stripes needed to be consistent, and you wonder how the fuck, like, a very legendary Disney animator is responsible for that, and you wonder, like, how the fuck did he do this? And I think he also did, like, the Beauty and the Beast ballroom scene, like, stuff that you're like, whoa, or, you know, that would be so
Quite
difficult to
talented,
do.
yeah.
Whereas, you know, Miraculous Ladybug, the reason why it went 3D was because of the hassle of having to draw Marinette's spots on her costume. In 3D, the spots are there, and they're always there, and they don't move. However, in 3D, it seems to be harder to animate animals. Now, I know that there's Zootopia, but they're all bipedal, right? So they're
Yes.
kind of human, they just look animal-like,
Furries.
right? So I'm wondering, I wonder if the reason why the 3D Disney musicals are, like, the animal musicals are kind of extinct is because of the switch to 3D animation, right? Because yeah, you have Pascal and you have Spen and all of that stuff, but apparently those things are a bitch to animate. So if you have an entire cast of all reindeer and it's a fucking reindeer movie, maybe you'd be in trouble. I don't know.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you made less crap movies, maybe people would go see them.
Right, obviously. But that's just a thought that occurred in my head. I'm like, yeah, I wonder if that's why we don't get any more animal movies anymore,
like that
right?
Pixar used to be the golden standard, and then like it kind of went from golden standard to, well, I mean, Monsters University, The Little Dinosaur, like,
Yeah.
I think they're still, on average, they hit really well, but, like, the brand is not golden the way it was for, like, WALL-E and
that's
Up
gonna
and The
be
Incredibles.
a different video, but yeah, I look at this and I'm like, I feel like that Sony did a disservice by making this its sort of, again, unloved middle child probably in comparison to Spider-Verse, but there is like an IP here. There is,
oh yeah,
you
sequels,
go on tour
merchandise.
as the girl, like you have the Hatsune Miku models and they do concerts, you have the merch, you have comics, right? You have the TV show, like there's just so much storytelling opportunity because it lives in that. I know that they put the whole moon up, but maybe there's still some demons running around that didn't get sent back, whatever, we can figure it out. Or it could even be, like I said, demons from other mythologies that the home moon doesn't apply to. I think that would be interesting, but like you can do the monster of the week with this and have Rumi be finding out more about her past. Like there is the potential there in the same way that I say that fandom's survival kind of depends on like a lot of specificity but a little vagueness to be able to make fan content between the lines, like we talked about Ruby, Avatar,
yes.
right, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, like I'm glad that this was so successful. I know that we had our criticisms and we complained a lot, but I hope that you guys know that we did enjoy ourselves.
It was
and how the
quite
music was
good,
integrated,
yes.
at least for me. Anything else? You can't even think of anything.
I could not. That was I did not. That was a failure to launch for
Whatever,
me.
it's okay.
My God.
But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed. It's always nice to talk with Hunter for this long about things that we like. So yeah, I know that
And
it's a
occasionally
little
dislike.
longer than Moana 2's video.
Compared
but-
to yeah, because when we actually like a thing, we'll probably talk about it more.
Oh, yeah, for
Whereas with
sure.
Moana 2, it's like how much can you really talk about a garbage fire?
Right,
Truly.
exactly. So
There's
like.
there
With
was
that,
a-
we had
was a
barely
dumpster.
any rewrite ideas.
And
With
it's
this,
on
we
fire.
had like ideas on what they
Yeah.
could have changed, but we do want to see more of them, and I hope it does successful, and I hope that this proves that an original IP can actually break
the
out,
distance?
right?
Yeah.
Go the distance. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys had fun. This has been Calxiyn and Hunter caring way too much, and I hope now that you guys care too. I forgot to do my intro and my outro in the middle, like for the patrons and whatever. Anyway, bye. Go watch another video that YouTube will tell you which one that you'll like. Bye, guys.